Chapter 245. Gotcha. Amidst the heart-wrenching cracking sound, the sharp dagger was directly broken into two by Noah's actions. Perhaps Kay wanted to use a surprise attack to disrupt Noah's battle rhythm, so as to cause effective damage to Noah. But Kay simply did not know that under the effect of Noah's sensory ability, this kind of unexpected battle method was basically useless. Thus, once the dagger was broken, Kay's expression suddenly tensed up, and his body instantly retreated. While Kay was retreating, Kay's hand reached for his waist and pulled out a weapon at lightning speed. Surprisingly, it was the submachine gun that Kay's subordinates were also using. However, just as Kay was about to pull the trigger of the submachine gun in his hand, in front of him, Noah's feet turned, and a beautiful flash of light appeared under his feet. Pung! At that moment, the ground under Noah's feet was directly crushed by the shockwave from Noah's feet, and Noah himself was pushed by the shockwave, his body like a ray of light, directly shooting out. Kay only felt a blur in front of him, and then, a pair of cold, pitch-black eyes followed by a figure appeared in front of him. Noah's speed made Kay's heart tremble. At this moment, Noah suddenly swung out a solid punch without any fancy moves, and fiercely slammed it into the submachine gun in Kay's hand. The vigorous force was like water flowing out of a dam, crazily venting out. Pung! After the sound of an explosion, Kay's wrist went numb, and the submachine gun in his hand actually made a slight gotcha sound from Noah's punch. That was the sound of the body of the submachine gun cracking. Kay's heart trembled again, and before he could react, a mocking voice rang out. This is the so-called God Destroyer team? You want to destroy a god with this level of strength? Kay's face turned black and white under Noah's mocking evaluation, and even his eyes turned slightly red. The murderous aura on his body surged like a violent storm. You're just a student who hides in a completely useless school playing a game of becoming stronger. What right do you have to evaluate me? Kay removed his pretense of politeness and stared fixedly at Noah. You don't even know if you've seen blood before, I'll let you experience true cruelty. After he finished speaking, Kay's feet stomped, and his body lowered, his speed suddenly increased by several levels, and he charged straight in Noah's direction. Swish! A short knife cut through the air like lightning, and under Kay's brandishing it made a sharp sound, fiercely piercing towards Noah. Duh! Noah immediately once again tiptoed, and his body lightly moved to the side. Chi! The sharp short knife brushed past Noah's shoulder and flew past. However, the short knife that missed suddenly trembled, and strangely curved into an arc, flicking towards Noah's head. Noah's expression didn't change, and he tilted his head back. This time, the short knife brushed past Noah's face and flew past. At this moment, Noah stomped his feet on the ground, and his body spun at high speed like a top. He threw out a kick, and a kick that contained a powerful force immediately and fiercely whipped towards Kay's direction. Pung! Kay, who had hurriedly raised his dagger to block the kick, was forced back a few steps by the force of the kick that landed on his dagger. Without any hesitation, Kay used the force of the shockwave to retreat. With a flip of his hand, he pulled out another dagger. Seeing this, Noah's eyes slightly narrowed. His body moved, and he turned into a blurry black shadow, and violently rushed out. After suffering once, Kay also understood how proficient Noah's fighting ability was. He didn't dare to let Noah get close to him again. He let go of the short knife in his hand, and with a half-turn of his body, he ferociously kicked the short knife's handle. The short knife was like a ray of silver light, and with the ferocious force of Kay's kick, it viciously shot towards Noah's eyes. Noah's body paused, and then he suddenly jumped, and the tip of his foot accurately tapped on the short knife's handle that eye, and the next moment, the foot that Noah tapped on the short knife's handle flashed with a brilliant light, and the surrounding space suddenly appeared with bursts of light, converging under Noah's feet. Seeing this scene that had happened once before, Kay's pupils shrunk to the size of a needle. Pung! At the same time, the light that had converged under Noah's feet exploded, shattering the short knife under his feet. His body once again turned into a flash of light, and like a ghost, he appeared in front of Kay. This time, Noah didn't give Kay the chance to react. His eyes trembled, and he extended his hand. Noah's elbow was like a thick stick, and it ruthlessly smashed down on Kay's hand that was previously holding the short knife that was shot towards his eyes. Ka! The elbow that landed on Kay's wrist exploded with a powerful force, and it directly caused Kay's wrist to emit a crisp sound of breaking bones. If this attack had landed directly on Kay's hand, then Kay's hand might have been crippled. However, because the armor-like, armored steel also covered Kay's hand, the cracking sound caused by Noah's elbow smashing into Kay's hand wasn't the sound of bones breaking, but the sound of the armored steel armor on Kay's hand shattering. Even so, Noah's attack only gave Kay enough time to change his expression. Immediately after, Noah's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. He raised his fist that was wrapped in a strong wind, and heavily smashed it towards Kay's head, the only part that wasn't protected by the armored steel armor. The incoming strong wind caused Kay's face to break out in a cold sweat with a schwa sound. Looking at the fist that was rapidly enlarging in his eyes, Kay hurriedly raised his hand to protect his face. Pung! Noah's fist, which was enveloped by a strong gust of wind, struck Kay's hand that was protecting his face. It also landed on the armored steel armor on Kay's arm. With a low sound, it blocked Noah's fist. However, Kay didn't have enough time to relax. In front of him, shadows of fists suddenly flashed. Each shadow of fists contained strength that was definitely not weaker than the previous one. Along with the air currents, they enveloped Kay in a series of sonic booms. Peng peng peng. The shadows of fists were like raindrops pouring down on Kay's arm. Kacha kacha. The armored steel armor on Kay's arm continuously emitted cracking sounds. Pung! At a certain moment, with a muffled sound, the armored steel armor on Kay's arm exploded. Pung! Noah's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fist and mercilessly punched Kay's arm, which was only left with the strength of a mortal. Kacha! This time, the cracking sounds really did resonate from the bones in Kay's arm. Goo woo. Kay, whose arm was broken, finally squeezed out a painful groan from his throat. At this moment, Noah didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. He swung his fist, and under Kay's horrified gaze, his fist went through the air and wind, heading straight for Kay's face. Pung! In the end, his hard fist still made contact with Kay's face. Poochie! This solid punch directly caused Kay to violently spit out a mouthful of blood. His body was like a bird with broken wings as he flew backwards, heavily crashing into a tombstone not far away. Dong! The terrifying force caused the tombstone behind Kay to collapse. The fragments of the tombstone also turned into a pile of rubble, burying Kay's figure within. The battle ended abruptly and quickly. Cough cough cough. Kay, who was buried within the rubble, coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. Then, a black shadow slowly covered Kay's field of vision. How does it feel to lose to a student like me, who hides in a completely useless school and plays a game of becoming stronger? Noah looked down at Kay from above. Mr. Who understands true cruelty. Chapter 246. The intense pain on his face made Kay's consciousness a little fuzzy. But even so, Kay still stared at Noah, who was looking down at him from above. After a while, he spat out a few words. Unlike the students who were leisurely training in Haoling Academy, the soldiers of the God Destroyer troop, led by Kay, were trained in an environment where they could die at any time. Thus, disregarding the physical condition and other external conditions, just in terms of combat experience and techniques, Kay, who was trained in an environment where he could die at any time, could not possibly lose to a group of students who were leisurely training in the academy. Even in terms of external conditions, even if Kay's installation steel was an incomplete product that had not been completely adjusted, it would not be a problem for him to match the physical condition of a surpasser who had been strengthened by the Daybreak Star pattern of level 2. In a situation where he did not lose to his opponent in terms of combat experience, techniques, and other internal conditions, as well as physical, mental, and other external conditions, why would he be defeated without being able to retaliate, and lose so miserably? Kay did not understand. No matter how he thought about it, he could not understand. But if he simply thought about it, wouldn't the answer be obvious very quickly? The installation steel on his body was probably able to match the physical condition of a level 2 surpasser. And the level of the opponent in front of him should be level 2, based on the information he had. Then, in a situation where his physical condition was the same, yet he still lost to his opponent, wasn't the answer obvious? His opponent's combat experience and techniques were above his own. This was the reason. But Kay could not accept this reason at all. Of course, there was no way that Kay would know that in order to defeat him, Noah had even used his newly learned Great Leap. That technique that had shocked even the level V Moonlit Glass Rabbit when it was level 1, when used with the level 2 physical strength, how much would Noah's speed increase? This was the real reason why Kay, whose overall strength had reached rank 3 and was close to rank 4, was defeated so quickly. Although Kay didn't know about the Great Leap Forward, he knew that he had lost so quickly because of Noah's terrifying speed. His body immediately trembled, and his bloodshot eyes were fixed on Noah, filled with hatred. If it wasn't for the fact that the adjustment of the steel installation hadn't been completed. Is this what someone who understands true cruelty would say? Noah sneered. You, the guy who understands true cruelty, is actually someone who doesn't even understand that the outcome of a fight represents everything? After saying that, Noah revealed a look of pity. What's the difference between this kind of daydreaming and the students you despise? Kay's blood-stained face contorted. He didn't say anything, but the hatred in his eyes as he looked at Noah grew stronger and stronger. However, for Noah, this wasn't the first time he had to endure this kind of gaze. Didn't you just say that I don't even know if I've seen blood before? Lowering his eyes, Noah looked at Kay, who was lying in front of him, and sneered. He raised the revolver in his hand, which he hadn't used even once in his fight with Kay, and aimed it at Kay's head. Then let me tell you the answer. After saying that, Noah's body began to emit a strange feeling, causing Kay, who was lying on the ground, to have a drastic change in expression. This strange feeling, for Kay, was already as familiar as eating a meal. Killing intent. True killing intent. The student in front of him, whom he disdained, actually had this kind of true killing intent. If it was killing intent, Kay wouldn't be surprised at all. After all, as long as one was a human, it was possible to have evil intentions towards others, and develop killing intent. But if it was killing intent, it was a type of temperament that only those who had killed before would have. In other words, the student in front of him had killed before. Furthermore, with this kind of true killing intent, how could the blaze not turn into a deadly weapon when used with hostility, malice, and killing intent? As long as Noah pulled the trigger in this state, then Kay's life would end there. However, in this situation where his heart was filled with the threat of death, Kay didn't feel any fear. Instead, he laughed, and the more he laughed, the louder and crazier he laughed. So that's how it is. So that's how it is. No wonder you could defeat me. Kay, who was lying on the ground, laughed joyfully while looking at Noah mockingly. So, you are also a demon who can use the weapon in your hand to take other people's lives. You are one of my own kind. Noah suddenly raised his eyes, and the finger that was on the trigger pulled without hesitation. Pang! The muffled sound of a gunshot rang out. Shio! The pitch-black bullet pierced through the air and flew upwards, shooting into the ceiling of the haunted house. Noah stared blankly at the revolver, that he didn't know when it had been placed on his hand. He raised the revolver that he had aimed at Kay, and the white slender hand that moved his hand so that the muzzle of the revolver was facing the sky. He turned his head and looked to his side. A pair of jade eyes appeared in Noah's eyes. Not far away, the three people who should have been fighting with the owner of this pair of beautiful eyes had all fallen to the ground. It's fine if you stop here. The hand that was tightly holding Noah's gun raised the muzzle of the revolver to the sky. The culprit who had saved the lives of her enemies was still holding the rifle in one hand, and her gem-like eyes met Noah's gaze. Don't continue. Noah didn't avoid the pair of jade eyes that were less than 10 centimeters away from him. He looked directly at Lilith. He wanted to kill me, and even kidnapped you. Who knows how many people he has killed? Noah's implication was that such a person deserved to die. I understand. Lilith's eyes fluctuated with a strange expression. It was a feeling called heartache. I never say what I have said once, but this time, I want to tell you once again that we are the same kind. Lilith said word by word. So, I will never admit that you are the same kind as this guy. Noah's eyes also flickered, but he still didn't move his gaze away. It was as if he avoided Lilith's gaze, he would lose. Is it because of this reason that you stopped me? If Lilith stopped him because of this reason, then Noah didn't mind telling Lilith the truth. However, in the next moment, Lilith's face that was always full of confidence showed a sad smile for the first time, and she said such a sentence. I just don't want your soul to be stained with the color of blood again because of this guy. This sentence deeply touched Noah's heart. The scene fell into a stifling silence. After a long time, Noah lowered the hand that was holding the gun, and the revolver turned into a flame and disappeared. This made Lilith reveal an extremely beautiful smile, and at the same time, it also made Kay roar in excitement. Kill me. Why didn't you kill me? Whether I kill you or not, it's not up to you, but up to me. You should be glad that you were lucky enough to escape. Noah glanced at Kay, whose face was twisted in excitement. Let me tell you, I'm not the same kind as you. At least, the guys that died in my hands deserve to die, and some of the people that died in your hands must be innocent. After leaving this sentence, Noah no longer paid attention to Kay, and walked past the attackers on the ground, toward the exit. Behind him, Lilith was also following beside Noah. Her footsteps were as heroic as usual, carrying with them an unusual charm. Her charming face that used to carry a confident smile was now wearing a satisfied smile. Immediately after, Lilith hugged Noah's arm and buried her happy face into Noah's shoulder. Sure enough, it's great to have Noah become my tripping blade. Noah smiled bitterly. Chapter 247. The day after defeating the 10-man team of Kay and the God Destroyer squad, Noah and Lilith were called to the chairman's office. After defeating Kay and the God Destroyer squad yesterday, Noah didn't pay attention to those people anymore. However, Lilith immediately notified the school and had the tomb protectors stationed in the school move out to arrest all the members of the God Destroyer squad, including Kay. The so-called tomb protectors here referred to the surpassers, who graduated from Haolang Academy and joined the Dawn organization's Wei An army to work. Since these tomb protectors belonged to the Dawn organization, then naturally a portion of them would be transferred to Haolang Academy to protect the birthplace of the surpassers. If one wanted to graduate from Haolang Academy, they had to at least reach level 3. Therefore, even the weakest of the tomb protectors had the combat strength of level 3, and a portion of them were even level 4, which couldn't be compared to level 3. The difference between level 3 and level 4 was extremely frightening. It was even more frightening than the difference between level 4 and level V. After all, once a surpasser advanced to level 4, not only would their body and mind receive the most basic level of strengthening, they would also be able to release the true power of the blaze. With the ability to release the true power of the blaze, it was easy to imagine how much stronger level 4 would be compared to level 3. With the existence of such a group of guards, the members of the God Destroyer team, led by Kay, were easily defeated. Even if they weren't defeated, other than Kay, the rest of them wouldn't have the slightest ability to resist. Naturally, all of them were successfully captured. This had only happened yesterday. And only after such a thing had happened yesterday did the chairman ask the person involved to come to the office today. Moreover, he didn't listen to what had happened and directly threw out a piece of news that made Noah raise his eyebrows. You released all of those people? Yes. 99 Lunar Knights released all of Kay and the God Destroyer squad. That's right. 99 Lunar Knights sat behind a luxurious desk as deep as the night. Her doll-like delicate face was full of smiles. Is there a problem? What's the problem? This didn't need to be a discerning person. As long as one had some common sense, they wouldn't be able to accept it, right? That was a direct attack on the students of the academy, and the target of the attack was one of the investors of the Dawn organization, the eldest daughter of the Bristol family, a criminal member with the title of Special Lilith. In addition, the other party's purpose of kidnapping Lilith was to threaten the Dawn organization. As the leader of the Dawn organization, how could 99 lunar nights let her go just like that? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't make sense, right? However, Noah just raised his eyebrows and turned his head away without asking anything. This made 99th lunar night curious. Don't you want to say something? What do you want me to say? Don't tell me you want me to blame this kind of illogical thing that happens all the time in this academy? Noah glanced at 99th lunar night and said this with a smile that wasn't a smile. Haven't you done this kind of thing before? Your Excellency, Blaze Diabolica. 99th lunar night's expression changed. Noah. Lilith, who was originally leisurely playing with her hair on the side, also turned her head in surprise. However, before she could do anything, Noah raised his hand in front of her and stopped her from speaking. Blaze Diabolica, Equipment Smith, these two taboo names were heard from those guys who only knew how to do sneaky things yesterday. Noah said with an indifferent face. According to the other party, Surpasser was created by Blaze Diabolica, and God Destroyer seemed to be created by Equipment Smith. I don't have much interest in the latter, but as for the former, the so-called Surpasser, the person who created the Surpasser, thinking about it, is obviously the highest person in charge of the Dawn organization, Mr. Chairman, right? The surrounding atmosphere gradually became heavy with Noah's indifferent words. As a student, it's better if you don't casually mention this taboo name, and it's best if you don't get involved. 99th lunar night stared at Noah with an expressionless face. After a while, she said softly, just like how we never asked about your origin. Hearing these words, Noah suddenly narrowed his eyes, and secretly sighed in his heart. In the end, the tampering with his household register and identity was still exposed. However, that wasn't strange. Even if Noah could rely on his hacking ability to leave his information in the country's database, and hack into a household register and identity, at most it would only be able to deceive ordinary people. If he wanted to deceive a country's underground organization like the Dawn organization, that was absolutely impossible. Only, Noah didn't think that in a situation where his identity was unknown, and the fact that his tampering was exposed, 99th lunar night actually didn't expose him. Could it be that even if an unidentified person stayed in the school, it didn't matter? Could it be that 99th lunar night wasn't afraid that Noah had the intention to harm the Dawn organization and infiltrated the school? It doesn't matter. As if she could see through Noah's thoughts, 99th lunar night said with an unprecedentedly firm tone. As long as you can achieve absolute duo, in the end, it doesn't matter no matter what. Absolute duo? Noah stared blankly. What is absolute duo? What does it have to do with tripping duo? The various doubts in his heart made Noah realize that the world wasn't as simple as it seemed, and this made Noah fall into silence. Even if he directly asked the question, 99th lunar night shouldn't answer him, right? Then, rather than asking for a rebuff, it was better to not ask anything. Seeing Noah choose to remain silent, 99th lunar night looked deeply at Noah, and her heart once again exclaimed in admiration for the other party. Incomparably powerful battle skills and battle experience. As special, Blaze belonged to the category of exception. In addition to his astonishing insight, his ability to act, and his state of mind that could easily handle any situation, this student of unknown origin in front of her always made 99th lunar night feel unusually surprised. Of course, for 99th lunar night, she was only interested in Noah's Blaze, which was also soul. Only this could be directly related to 99th lunar night's sorrowful wish. I hope that the rest of your life can be the same as before. While all kinds of thoughts flashed through her mind, 99th lunar night also looked straight at Noah. Whether it's from here or from other places that have nothing to do with your current life, I hope that you will be able to forget it in the future. Hearing 99th lunar night's words, Noah laughed self-deprecatingly. In other words, you hope that I can keep my mouth shut? I just don't want any strange disturbances to happen in this school. 99th Lunar Night shook her head, and then took out something from the drawer. It was a rod-shaped object with a lid-like device connected to the front and back, and a test tube filled with liquid was sandwiched in the middle. This is... On the side, Lilith let out a surprised voice. Even Noah was a little surprised. This is the syringe for the new daybreak star pattern. 99th Lunar Night put the rod-shaped object on the desk in front of her, raised her eyes, and looked at Noah. Noah Doria, I will give you the right to perform the sublimation ritual and obtain the special opportunity to sublimate. Following such a sentence, Noah and Lilith's gaze were cast at the syringe on the desk at the same time. They did not speak, and the scene fell into silence. Chapter 248. As soon as they walked out of the chairman's office, Noah and Lilith heard a sound behind them, closing the door of the chairman's office. Standing in front of the door of the office, Noah and Lilith did not look at each other. They just stood there quietly and did not speak for a long time. Noah raised his hand and looked at the internal test tube filled with the daybreak star pattern rod without a needle. In his heart, he did not understand what kind of trick 99 Lunar Nights was playing. Logically speaking, the sublimation ritual was an opportunity that would only be given at the end of the semester. In this country, a grade was generally 3 semesters. That is to say, in a year, the school would only give students 3 opportunities to undergo the sublimation ritual. In this way, in 3 years, a student could generally undergo the sublimation ritual at least 9 times. But don't think that this number was a lot. After all, even if one could get the opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual, if the physical and mental training was not enough, then it would be impossible to achieve sublimation. Not to mention that if one was unable to successfully sublimate, not only would they have a high fever for several days, but their whole body would also be attacked by severe muscle pain. Even if there were 3 opportunities in a year and there was no way to sublimate, they would not be able to advance to the next grade and would suffer the fate of dropping out. In this way, the opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual was very precious. Because of the good results in the new blade battle, Noah had already received an additional opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual. Now, after knowing that Noah's identity was fake and his origin was very suspicious, 99 Lunar Nights not only did not do anything to Noah, but also inexplicably gave Noah an opportunity to undergo the sublimation ritual. What was the purpose of this? Not knowing if she saw through Noah's thoughts, Lilith, who was standing beside Noah, suddenly spoke. Don't think too much. Noah was startled. Aren't you thinking about why 99 Lunar Nights did not kick you out of the school after learning about your origin and fake identity, but also gave you the sublimation ritual? Lilith's green eyes looked forward and said without turning her head. That's why I told you not to think about it too much. That child has already told you her purpose. Lilith turned her head and met Noah's gaze. Everything is for the sake of achieving absolute duo. Absolute duo. Absolute duo again? Noah finally couldn't help but ask. What exactly is this absolute duo? Lilith closed her eyes, but her voice echoed clearly, that is the ultimate realm that transcends human beings can reach. When the power of the soul is raised to the limit, the domain that can be reached is called absolute duo. Raise the power of the soul to the limit? Noah couldn't help but tighten his grip on the syringe in his hand as he frowned. In other words, raise the power of the blaze to the limit? Lilith couldn't deny it and smiled. She reached out her hand and grabbed one of Noah's hands. Then, under Noah's stunned gaze, she pressed Noah's hand in front of her body and pressed it on her full breasts. That familiar yet strange touch passed through Noah's hand and into his nerves. Noah's mind turned blank. Why do you think I am special? Why are you an exception? Why is 9-layer penetration an ability? Isn't that because our soul is abnormal? But not only did Lilith not care, she even raised her beautiful eyes and stared closely at Noah. For that child, the only thing that is valuable is our soul. And it is because our soul is different and unique that I have so many privileges. That is why you are treated as an exception and allowed to stay in this school. Saying this, Lilith seemed to want to press Noah's hand into her soul and feel it. She kept making Noah's hands sink into her full breasts. In order to make the power of the soul to the limit, in order to achieve absolute duo, that child can do anything. This is why there are so many ridiculous things happening in this school. During the qualification ceremony of the entrance ceremony, the new students had to duel with the person closest to them. During the tripping duo arrangement, they didn't care about secular etiquette and let Noah, Ivan, and Julie live in the same dorm. During the new blade battle, they arranged for Yu Jianli Rabbit to attack the students. After Yu Jianli Rabbit attacked the students, they even openly let Yu Jianli Rabbit become the teacher of the first grade students again. And, after Noah's fake identity was exposed, they still allowed Noah to stay in the school. Things that were extremely ridiculous to other people not only happened frequently in this school, but also mixed into the lives of the students as if it was a matter of course. This was all because the school's chairman was such a person. In order to achieve absolute duo, she could ignore everything else and only wanted to achieve results and goals. Recalling 99 lunar nights' determination when she mentioned absolute duo, all the doubts in Noah's heart disappeared in an instant. Since she is a witch, it is not strange that she has a curse. In the end, Noah squeezed out this sentence out of sympathy. Even if it's a curse called absolute duo. Lilith was silent. Pata. At this moment, the sound of something falling to the ground was heard. Noah and Lilith both turned their heads reflexively and looked at the source of the sound. Then, both of them saw it. They saw Ivan, Julie, Tachibana, Enya. The four girls stood not far away. Under their feet, a few cans of drinks rolled on the ground, but it didn't attract the attention of the four girls. This was because all four girls had their eyes wide open and were staring at the same spot. They stared at Noah's hand that was pressed on Lilith's full chest under Lilith's lead. The surrounding air froze at an extremely fast speed. Noah and Lilith followed everyone's gaze and also looked at Noah's hand and Lilith's chest. Looking at Noah's hand that was deeply immersed in Lilith's plump breasts, the two of them showed different reactions. Lilith didn't seem to understand what she had done until now. She looked shocked. Noah's mouth twitched, and his face stiffened. He looked back in the direction of Ivan, Julie, Tachibana, Enya, and then the corner of his mouth twitched. "Sorry to disturb you." Ivanli laughed, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. He turned around and left in a huff. No, 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 shameless. Tachibana's pretty face instantly turned red. She screamed and fled in a sorry state. Yes, 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 sorry. Ya's face was also flushed red. She hurriedly bowed and staggered away. Julie lowered her head and covered the expression on her face under her silver bangs. After a while, she reached out a hand and pressed it on her chest. Blazing Fong. The gorgeous flames turned into a pair of blades and fell into Julie's hands. The next moment, Julie didn't even give Noah and Lilith a chance to react. She raised her gloomy face, crouched, and rushed in the direction of Noah and Lilith. At night, when Lilith fell asleep due to exhaustion from Julie's torment, Noah stood at the window and raised his hand under the bright moonlight. In Noah's hand, the syringe filled with Daybreak Star rune was firmly held in his hand. Without the slightest hesitation, Noah raised the syringe in his hand and pierced it into his neck with all his might. With a soft sound, the liquid representing Daybreak Star rune slowly disappeared in the syringe and entered Noah's body. Chapter 249. The next day, after class, the girls who were familiar with Noah gathered around Noah. Especially Ivanli, who was sitting in front of Noah. He seemed to have forgotten the matter of him storming out in anger in front of Noah yesterday. He moved his face closer to Noah and said with great surprise, "You've really risen to level 3? Julie, whose face was still emotionless, making it hard to tell if yesterday's venting had any effect on her anger, and Tachibana and Enya, who were somewhat evasive because of yesterday's matter, all converged their gazes on Noah. Not to mention Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana and Enya, even the rest of the students cast their gazes on Noah's direction. Their eyes were filled with envy and amazement. Did he really rise to level 3? How long has it been since he left school? Undoubtedly, there are still many of us who are only at level 1. In the class just now, Yu Jianli, who was acting cute as usual, made a high-profile announcement as soon as class started. She announced that Noah had successfully risen to level 3. According to Yu Jianli, not long ago, Noah had pulled out an outlaw who had infiltrated the school and received high praise from the chairman. Therefore, the chairman specially gave Noah a chance to use the ascension instrument. Under this half-truth announcement, the news that Noah had successfully risen to level 3 was immediately known to the whole class, which led to such a situation. However, it was no wonder that everyone was so surprised. After all, in the school, every year students must successfully obtain an ascension instrument within a year to be promoted to the next year. Otherwise, they would be expelled. And Noah, who had successfully risen to level 3, was equivalent to obtaining the qualifications to be promoted to the third year of the school. As long as he honestly studied in the school, he would be able to smoothly welcome graduation after 3 years and enter the Dawn organization to work. How could the students not be surprised and envious? It should be noted that other than Ivanli, Julie, Tachaba, Yujue Totaru, and Yuta Totaru, and a few other students who obtained good results in the new blade battle and were promoted to level 2, the rest of the students were still level 1. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Noah, who was not only the strongest among the first years, but also the one with the highest rank, not to attract the attention of everyone. Facing the gazes of Ivan, Julie, Tachaba, and all his classmates, Noah sighed inwardly. Noah had indeed successfully leveled up to grade 3. But in fact, Noah was not only not happy, but also a little disappointed. This was because Noah discovered that the strengthening effect of the Daybreak Star rune, this time was much weaker than the previous 2 times. The Daybreak Star pattern could strengthen a person's body and spirit, allowing them to obtain extraordinary power and become an existence that surpassed humans. It was a pity that Noah was already an existence that surpassed humans, and even surpassed them by a large margin. Although the Daybreak Star rune was a magical thing that strengthened the human body in a multiplicative manner, Noah had already discovered that there was a limit to the strengthening of the Daybreak Star rune. From the point of view of Noah, who had released all of his power, the strengthening of the Daybreak Star rune on his body was minimal, which was enough to prove that there was a limit to the strengthening of the Daybreak Star rune. Fortunately, even if the strengthening of the body was minimal, the Daybreak Star rune could still strengthen the person's spirit, specialize the person's soul, and allow the person to obtain a weapon called the blaze. It could also indirectly increase Noah's magical power, giving Noah a lot of benefits. But now, not only did the Daybreak Star rune strengthen Noah's body, even the strengthening of his spirit seemed to have finally reached its peak. Compared to the previous 2 times, the extent of the increase was extremely limited. The evidence was that Noah clearly felt it after successfully leveling up to grade 3. This time, his magical power was not able to increase by much. In other words, the strengthening brought by the Daybreak Star rune on Noah's body, spirit, magic, and other aspects had all become negligible. Only the blaze was still strengthened, and its hardness, toughness, and other aspects had all been greatly improved. It was believed that after 1 or 2 more times of strengthening, the effect of the Daybreak Star rune would be the same as the protozoan virus, and would no longer have any effect on Noah. Aware of this, how could Noah not be disappointed? Noah could only release some of his limited power, and after he obtained the strength of grade 3, he let go of the Daybreak Star rune's expectations of strengthening his body, spirit, and magical power. Of course, although Noah let go of the Daybreak Star rune's expectations of strengthening, he was still looking forward to the next upgrade. Even if the Daybreak Star rune's strengthening had gradually begun to have no effect on Noah, after leveling up to grade 4, it was not only the strengthening power, but also another kind of power that Noah was looking forward to would be obtained by Noah in the next grade. Blaze was the true power of Blazing Fang. Thinking of this, the disappointment in Noah's heart disappeared by a lot. Even if I leveled up to grade 3, there is nothing to be happy about. Immediately, Noah said to the crowd that had gathered around. Did you guys hear what Teacher Tsukujiri said just now? Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and Ya suddenly looked at each other. After a while, Ya weakly raised her hand. Is it about leveling up to grade 4? Leveling up to grade 4 could release the true power hidden in Blaze. This matter, Tsukujiri Bunny had just announced in front of the class. This caused the students in the class to look forward to the true power hidden in their Blaze, but at the same time, it also caused many students to feel vexed. This was because Tsukujiri Bunny had also said another piece of news. If you want to level up to grade 4, not only do you need to have more stringent physical conditions, the mental requirements will also greatly increase. Is it referring to this matter? Tachibana also frowned in vexation. I didn't think that leveling up to grade 4 would be so difficult. Ivanli, Julie, and Ya all nodded. Even Noah lowered his head and muttered to himself. According to what Tsukujiri Bunny had said, although the conditions for reaching each grade were the same, which was to obtain sufficient physical and mental training, the 3 grades of Grade I, Grade 2, and Grade 3 had higher physical requirements, but the mental requirements were not as high. However, if you want to level up to Grade 4, the conditions were completely opposite. Let's use an analogy. If the required physical and mental values to level up to Grade 2 and Grade 3 were 10, then the physical value would be 9, and the mental value would only be 1. However, at Grade 4, the two values were reversed. Only when the mental value reached 9, and the physical value reached 1, could one successfully level up. It was said that this was because at Grade 4, one needed to greatly strengthen their mental strength in order to draw out more of their soul's power, and to stimulate the true power hidden in Blaze. This was why leveling up to Grade 4 had such harsh mental requirements. And this was what everyone was vexed about. The physical aspect could still be purposefully improved through daily training. But how could one improve their mental strength? Train their willpower? What kind of training would be the most effective? Or were there other methods? These, no one knew. It was because of this reason that Tsukujiri Bunny used a happy and cruel tone to tell everyone a piece of news. In this school, there were at most 3 or 4 people who could level up to Grade 4 every year. True power. Ivanli couldn't help but put his hand on his chest. What kind of power does my Blaze have? Julie, Tachibana, and Ya all fell into a reverie. Even Noah couldn't help but look forward to it. What kind of power does my Blaze have? It really makes people look forward to it. Chapter 250. In a burst of softness that made people reluctant to leave, Noah woke up from his sleep, and his confused head began to wake up. As soon as he woke up, the softness that still surrounded Noah when he fell asleep and made Noah feel as if he had entered a very comfortable place touched every nerve in Noah in a clearer way. Noah, who was really familiar with this soft touch, could only open his eyes and look at the ceiling. After a long time, he smiled bitterly. Noah. Noah. 2 dreamlike murmurs echoed softly from Noah's left and right sides, and the soft feeling became clearer. Even if he didn't confirm it with his own eyes, Noah could guess what had happened. It must be that Julie and Lilith habitually hugged each other, sandwiching Noah tightly in the middle. In fact, this was indeed the case. As usual, today's Julie and Lilith were still naked, but their bodies were covered with a thin sheet. Their delicate bodies under the sheet were desperately sticking to Noah's body, as if they were using Noah as a pillow, entangling him like an octopus. Noah, who was sandwiched between Julie and Lilith, could only bear the smooth skin from Julie and the plump touch from Lilith. There was only a bitter smile on his face again and again. If it was before, Noah would inevitably be shaken. However, the same thing would shake if it happened once or twice, and it would shake if it happened a dozen or 20 times. But if it happened nearly 100 times, would it still shake? At least, Noah was completely numb. It has to be said that habit is really a very scary thing. Undoubtedly, there were 2 extremely beautiful foreign girls sleeping with him almost every day, and they were sleeping with him naked every day. As a healthy man, Noah not only survived, but he was no longer shaken by the same wonderful encounter. Isn't this scary? The most frightening thing was not Noah's habits, but the habits of Julie, Lilith, and even Ivan. After a few months of interaction, he didn't know if Julie and Lilith had completely trusted Noah. Now, they basically didn't guard against Noah. They could calmly take off their clothes in front of Noah at any time. Ever since she started to resist Lilith and was unwilling to give Noah's right to sleep with Lilith, Julie would come to this room almost every night after taking a shower, refusing to leave no matter what. Gradually, even Ivan, who shared a room with Julie, got used to it. In the beginning, he would sulk when Julie and Lilith fought to sleep with Noah every night, but now, all he did was sigh and get along with Noah as usual. According to Ivan himself, since there hadn't been any strange rumors in the past few months, it proved that Noah's character was still trustworthy. At the very least, he wouldn't do anything strange to the opposite sex who shared the same bed. Therefore, Ivan was relieved. Even you didn't blush because of such things. She just smiled shyly when she knew that Noah, Julie, and Lilith were sleeping together. Only Orange Bar seemed to be unable to get used to it in his entire life. Every time he encountered something that had to do with relationships between men and women, he would either overreact or curse Noah as shameless, with a flushed face before running away. It was under such circumstances that Noah lived in the school for a few months. And today, it was finally the end of the semester. Thinking of this, Noah took a deep breath, and the depression in his heart dissipated a lot. With some expectations, he began to wake up the two charming girls. Good morning. Good morning. Voices saying good morning to each other constantly sounded from the surroundings. In the first-year classroom, a group of students was laughing and talking. And if one observed carefully, they would find that compared to a few months ago, the current first-year students had changed a lot. The original feeling of immaturity was gone, replaced by an aura that had begun to settle down. After a few months of intensive training and combat training, the group of students had already undergone obvious changes compared to when they first entered the school. They couldn't be said to be strong, but at least they had the feeling of being a combat personnel, just like how a recruit became a veteran, ready to be sent to the battlefield at any time. Of course, it was just a little. After all, even though the first-year students often had all kinds of comparisons and duels, they hadn't experienced a real life and death battle. They could only be considered to have left the beginner stage, but they were still rookies. However, that didn't affect the progress of the first-year students. The day has finally come. I've been waiting for a long time. We can finally level up. We must succeed. Yeah. Amidst the laughter and chatter, the students were all making similar statements. The reason was very simple. Because today, at the end of the first semester, the first-year students would also usher in their first ascension ritual. Not to mention that if they succeeded, they would be able to jump to level 2, and their strength would increase greatly. Just the fact that there were several level 2 classmates around them, and even level 3 existences, already made these level 1 students, who were only level 1, look forward to the ascension ritual. And the few level 2 students were also looking forward to today's ascension ritual. As long as they passed today's ascension ritual and rose to level 3, they would be able to sit back and relax until the third year, and finally welcome graduation, without having to worry about being expelled. Regarding this, the most timid Yo was extremely nervous. Relax, Ya. Orange Bar patted Ya's slender back. Your efforts during this period will definitely not be in vain, trust me. Little Bar. Ya looked at Orange Bar with gratitude and worry in her eyes. But can I really do it? Ma, yeah, don't worry. Ivan hugged Ya's soft body and giggled. Don't forget, you are now publicly recognized as the second person in terms of physical strength in the first year. In the past few months, you relied on the breathing technique to run almost every day to hone her physical strength. This not only made Ya's control of the breathing technique more and more skillful, but it also allowed Ya's physical strength to be fully improved in the past few months of training. Now, in terms of physical strength, Ya was already the second person in the entire first year, and even the second year. As for the first place, it was naturally the developer of the breathing technique. Noah. Julie turned her head and looked at Noah with her deep red eyes. Aren't you worried? Noah, who had been pestered by the bored Lilith, spread out his hands. If I get it, it's my fortune, if I don't, it's my fate. Julie nodded in confusion, clearly not understanding Noah's meaning. On the other hand, Lilith looked straight at Noah, a smile slowly appearing on her delicate face as if she could see through Noah's heart. That's what you say, but you're still looking forward to it, right? Noah smiled and did not deny it. He was indeed looking forward to it. He was looking forward to what kind of power his blaze could display after reaching level 4. If the sublimation fails, then I will have a high fever for a few days and won't be able to get out of bed for a while. Noah looked around at the girls around him. So, our goal is to successfully sublimate. Of course. Lilith was the first to speak confidently. If it wasn't for the successful sublimation, I wouldn't have waited until now. As a special, Lilith must have a lot of methods to obtain the daybreak star pattern needed to perform the sublimation ritual. But even so, Lilith did not rashly perform the sublimation, because if she couldn't sublimate, she would have to lie in bed for a few days in vain. So, even someone as confident as Lilith would not rashly perform the sublimation ritual. I hope you can be a little more nervous, Orange Bar said to Lilith. Lilith has no sense of nervousness. Yes, Lilith replied casually, making Orange Bar angry and helpless. After a few months, Lilith finally got along well with everyone under Noah's influence. She no longer missed work for no reason and hid in her room to sleep in or drink black tea. And the one who had the best relationship with Lilith was actually the serious Orange Bar, which was really unexpected. Chapter 251. Everyone. Hurry up and line up. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome if you miss this rare opportunity to sublimate. Yu Jianli Bunny, who was dressed strangely as usual, used a sweet tone to shout commands that did not have the slightest bit of deterrence, while constantly jumping up and down in the surroundings. When she encountered those who were in line a little slower, she would directly slap their buttocks, causing quite a few girls to cry out. Unlike the Class 1 students in the class, the Class 2 students were in a separate line. Thus, Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and the others, who knew Tsukumazu's true colors, looked at Tsukumazu, who was running back and forth in the rank I team with a cute smile on her face. They felt that this was all unreal. Let alone the girls, even Kyujuju Totaru and Kawai Hokusaki who were also in line felt abnormally uncomfortable. Humph, Kawai Hokusaki quickly spat out her displeasure. Seeing that guy running back and forth in our class so energetically makes me angry. It seemed that Kawai Hokusaki hadn't forgotten that she almost died in Tsukujiri Bunny's hands. Yeah. Kyujuju Totaru also stared closely in Tsukujiri Bunny's direction. Although that guy hasn't done anything suspicious in these few months and hasn't done anything to the students in class, we still can't be careless. Obviously, Kyujuju Totaru still hadn't accepted the fact that Tsukujiri Bunny was still her class teacher and was worried that Tsukujiri Bunny would continue to do things to others. The girls who clearly heard Kyujuju Totaru and Kawai Hokusaki's conversation all silently looked at each other. Last time in the new blade battle, Sensei Bunny said that she was a rank V surpasser. Ivanli said with some worry. If we were to successfully ascend to level 3 today, would we be able to fight back against Teacher Bunny who is at level V? That one sentence made the other girls fall into silence. Probably not. After a while, Tachibana was the first to speak. Her voice was extremely calm. We've all seen the true power of Blaze Sensei. To be honest, it's hard to believe that it's a power that's only one level higher than rank 3. The difference between rank 3 and rank 4 is huge, much bigger than the difference between other ranks. Julie nodded concisely. That is why I agree with Ba. Really? Ya asked worriedly. Even if we work together, it won't work? That won't do, right? Orange Bar shook his head. Perhaps, we'll only be able to pose a threat to Tsukujin Sensei after we successfully reach rank 4. Otherwise, no matter how many people we have, we won't be a match for Tsukujin-sensei if one side can unleash the true power of Blaze while the other side can't do the same. Julie and Anya nodded, and only Ivan said with emotion. At this time, I really admire Noah. Why was he able to defeat Teacher Little Rabbit who was at rank V when he was at rank I? Hearing this, the girls all looked at each other in dismay. Noah is really strong. Julie tilted her head, making the bell on her headband jingle. He's reliable and strong, just like Dad. Jolie-chan? You couldn't help but laugh. I think there's something wrong with your analogy. Noah's words shouldn't be considered in our consideration. Don't forget, he's an exception. Orange Bar smiled bitterly. Besides, Noah also said that he just happened to comprehend a new technique. Plus, Tsukujin-sensei didn't understand the power of his moves, so he chose to meet force with force. That's why he was able to defeat Tsukujin-sensei. If they were to fight again, it's hard to say who would win. That's only limited to the past. Ivan turned his head and looked at the long line at the front of the corridor. His gem-like eyes flashed with a strange light. If Noah is able to successfully ascend to grade 4 this time. The following words didn't need to be said out loud for Julie, Orange Bar, and Anya to understand. As long as he could successfully reach rank 4 and obtain the ability to unlock the true power of Blaze, then even Tsukujin-sensei Bunny who was at rank V would probably not be Noah's opponent. Whether it was Ivan, Julie, Orange Bar, or Ya, they all believed this. As the only rank 3 in the first grade, Noah was chased away by Tsukujin-sensei Bunny before he could line up. He was also taken away by a staff member. The only one who walked with Noah was the special Lilith. According to Tsukujin-sensei Bunny, in the class, only Noah and Lilith could enjoy the privilege of not needing to line up and directly undergo the ascension ritual. The reason was very simple. It was because this time, it was related to whether or not Noah could rise to level 4 and release the true power of Blaze, 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 Blaze. Not only Noah himself, but even the school's higher-ups were very interested in what kind of power the revolver's Blaze would have if Noah successfully leveled up to grade 4. Therefore, Noah was arranged to undergo the ascension ritual alone. As for the reason why Lilith was here, it was even simpler. Because Lilith was a special. As a special and a young miss, it would be too difficult for Lilith to line up. Therefore, Lilith followed in the name of being a special. Under the guidance of the staff member, Noah and Lilith came to a spacious room. And in the room, there were two people. One was wearing glasses on his face, wearing a suit, and had a cold expression on his face. The other was a young girl wearing a dark goth loli outfit, with long black hair tied into two ponytails, as dark as the night. Lilith directly said in surprise. New Moon? Why are you also here? In the school, I hope you can call me the chairman. 99th Lunar Night said helplessly. Even if you are my friend. Got it. Although she said so, Lilith's tone still did not change as if she was chatting with a friend. Then, why are you here? Isn't the reason obvious? 99th Lunar Night no longer paid attention to Lilith. Her deep eyes stared at Noah's body, with an inexplicable expression flickering in her eyes. As an special, I am looking forward to what kind of power your soul can exert. For this reason, it would be good to take a little time to come here. Hearing this, Noah could not help but sigh in his heart. Just like what Lilith said, 99th Lunar Night really only cared about the abnormality of Noah's soul. In addition, whether or not Noah concealed his origin, and whether or not he intended to harm the school, as long as she could achieve the goal of 99th Lunar Night, 99th Lunar Night did not care. The chairman really has confidence in me. Thinking so in his heart, Noah's face showed a faint smile. Does the chairman think that I have no possibility of failing the sublimation? But you can't deny the possibility of success. 99th Lunar Night answered almost emotionlessly. Student Noah, you have to know that for a researcher, as long as there is a slight possibility, they will madly study it. This is a true researcher. After saying that, 99th Lunar Night stepped forward and took out a syringe without a needle from her arms. After a long while, 99th Lunar Night raised her head and looked at Noah. "Let me personally perform the sublimation ritual for you." Noah immediately turned his head and looked at Lilith. After waiting for Lilith to nod with a smile, he helplessly shrugged his shoulders, stepped forward, and knelt down in front of 99th Lunar Night. Her deep eyes stared at Noah's deep pupils as 99th Lunar Night said one word at a time. "I hope that one day you will be able to achieve absolute duo." Following this sentence, 99th Lunar Night raised her hand and suddenly inserted the rod-shaped syringe into Noah's neck and pressed the trigger. With a soft sound, the daybreak star pattern in the syringe rapidly decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye and was injected into Noah's body. Chapter 252. Under the gaze of everyone present, the emerald green liquid representing the daybreak star rune was injected into Noah's body with the activation of the syringe and disappeared into the test tube of the syringe. Noah only felt a slight heat at his neck, and then his whole body suddenly emitted an amazing heat. Buzz. In the buzzing sound, the pure white star rune suddenly appeared on Noah's chest and was reflected on it. Pung. Immediately, the amazing heat emitted from Noah's body rushed out of Noah's body and turned into a red flame. It instantly burned and covered Noah's whole body. Chi. The red flame danced wildly on Noah's body, as if it wanted to devour everything around it, and continued to soar. The three countries, who had been on standby, had already protected 99th Lunar Night when she injected the daybreak star rune into Noah's body and retreated a distance. Even Lilith seemed to want to protect 99th Lunar Night. Together with the three countries, they stood side by side in front of 99th Lunar Night, but their eyes were fixed on Noah's body, motionless. Including 99th Lunar Night. Chi. Along with the astonishing heat, the blazing red flames danced wildly in the vast space. When the daybreak star rune entered Noah's body, it was as if his whole body had been struck by lightning. He trembled fiercely and immediately closed his eyes, sinking his mind into his own body. Under Noah's sensing ability, the situation in Noah's body was like a picture, directly displayed in his mind, allowing Noah to clearly see the situation in his body. At this time, the daybreak star rune that had just been injected into Noah's body had already dispersed into extremely small nanomachines that could not be seen by the naked eye, randomly shuttling back and forth in Noah's body. Following the shuttling of these nanomachines, the daybreak star pattern in Noah's body, which had been slowly functioning like cells, also began to riot. They slowly followed the newly added daybreak star pattern and penetrated Noah's entire body. Undoubtedly, apart from the first time he implanted the daybreak star tattoo and became a grade 1 surpasser, Noah didn't feel too much pain when he ascended to grade 2 and grade 3. There wasn't even the slightest abnormality. He only felt his whole body heat up, and the ascension was a success. But this time, although there was no pain, the abnormality was extremely great. Apart from the flames that were burning wildly on the surface of his body, Noah's body was also experiencing an abnormality. The originally very normal organs, tissues, and veins seemed to have been burned by something. They suddenly twisted like fried dough twists, which was extremely strange and terrifying. However, after a while, the nanomachines that were violently moving in every corner of his body constantly passed through these twisted organs, tissues, and veins, making them quickly recover in just a short second. At first glance, this seemed to be the effect of the daybreak star pattern on Noah's body. But only Noah could sense that the daybreak star pattern was not really working on his body, but on the existence deeper in his body, his soul. That was an existence that Noah couldn't sense even with his sensing ability. However, at this moment, Noah seemed to be able to sense the existence of his soul. No. To be more precise, it should be said that he sensed the existence sleeping in his soul. There were two weapons. One was a completely black gun with pure white lines fluctuating on the gun body. Revolver. The other sword was also completely black, and there were also white patterns on the sword. It was no longer as resplendent as before. Instead, it was as dark as the abyss. Knight's sword. One of them was the blaze, which gave Noah the title of exception. The other was that a blaze that only Noah knew about, even if no one else knew about its existence. The two blaze that belonged to Noah seemed to have encountered something extremely exciting at this moment, as they repeatedly vibrated. Buzz, 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 buzz. As the two blazes vibrated, the nanomachines that were rioting in every corner of Noah's body seemed to have received some kind of order. In an instant, they completely stopped and released some kind of wave-like message that others couldn't see. This kind of wave-like message reverberated like ripples, affecting every corner of Noah's body. Noah felt it. Under the influence of this message, his mind became clearer and clearer. This was the manifestation of his mind being greatly enhanced by the Dawn Star tattoo. Buzz, 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 buzz. As Noah's spirit was greatly enhanced by the Daybreak Star rune, the vibrations of the two blaze fangs that were sleeping in Noah's soul became more and more frequent. In the end, they also began to vibrate with waves of fluctuations. The fluctuations representing the Dawn Star tattoo, and the fluctuations representing the blaze suddenly met in Noah's body. In the end, as if they were being pulled, they all retracted into the two blaze. In this instant, two voices appeared in Noah's mind without any reason. Or rather, two names. Noah, who had two names in his mind, suddenly opened his eyes. Buzz. In the depths of Noah's soul, the knight's sword and revolver blaze suddenly blossomed with a gorgeous light. It was a pale blue light. Almost at the same time, the blazing red flame that covered Noah's entire body trembled and was immediately replaced by another flame that burned from within Noah's body. Looking at the new flame that replaced the original flame, among the three people present, except for the three kingdoms, Lilith and 99 lunar nights' eyes lit up at the same time. This was because the color of the flame burning on Noah's body changed from red to pale blue. Lilith wasn't the only one who had seen this pale blue flame. As the person in charge of the Dawn organization, 99 lunar nights had seen it countless times. This was a flame that only a surpasser, who had reached grade 4, would have. When this flame appeared on the body, it not only represented that the surpasser had successfully reached grade 4, but it also represented that the surpasser's true soul had been awakened. That's right. It was exactly the same as when Moonlight Glass Rabbit used the mad snake ring. It was also at this moment that Noah made a call. Blaze. The pale blue flame that covered Noah's entire body suddenly flowed like water and converged in front of Noah. Noah reached out his hand and grabbed the pale blue flame that was burning in front of him. Who? The pale blue flame immediately rotated and slowly turned into Noah's unique weapon, the revolver. Then, Noah's eyes flashed and he threw the revolver, in his hand, into the air. Show me. Magician. As soon as his voice fell, the revolver that was thrown into the air suddenly bloomed with an unusually dazzling light. Lilith, the three kingdoms, and 99 lunar nights, who was protected behind the two of them, were shocked at the same time. They quickly raised their hands and blocked in front of them, blocking the incoming dazzling light. Through the gaps in their hands, they squinted their eyes and stared at the revolver that bloomed with dazzling light. Under the dazzling light, the pitch-black revolver actually trembled and disintegrated into pieces. Buzz, buzz. The dazzling light became more and more intense. In the center of the dazzling light, the revolver that had disintegrated into pieces was like a sphere that was spinning. Then, it scattered and gathered in 7 different places before suddenly combining. Not long after, whether it was Noah, Lilith, 99 lunar nights, or the three kingdoms, they all saw it. He saw 7 objects that were completely black in color and had extremely unique yet simple appearances. Chapter 253. The 7 pitch-black objects were arranged in a semicircle and suspended above Noah's head. The 7 pitch-black objects that were disassembled and reassembled from Noah's blaze were mainly circular in shape. However, on the top, bottom, left, and right of the pitch-black rings, there was an antenna-like horn protruding from each of the 4 directions. It was as if the cross inside the rings had been removed, and the line of sight could be seen through the scope of a sniper rifle. The only difference was that there were some differences in size. This was because the size of the 7 pitch-black rings that protruded from the top, bottom, left, and right weren't just the size of an eye socket, as seen from the aiming line of a sniper rifle. Instead, they were the size of half a person's body, with a diameter of 1 meter. Logically speaking, if they were to be disassembled and reassembled from Noah's blaze, it would be impossible for the fragments of a revolver to form 7 rings with 4 vertical corners and a diameter of more than 1 meter. But in reality, whether it was Noah, Lilith, 99 lunar nights, or the 3 kingdoms, they had all seen that a revolver being disassembled and reassembled into these 7 pitch-black rings. And these 7 rings were the initial form of the true power hidden in Noah's revolver's blaze. Therefore, at the same time that his blaze transformed into these 7 rings, Noah felt as if a memory had been poured into his mind out of nowhere. He knew the power of a magician, or rather, the ability. Snap! Noah did not hesitate at all. He directly extended his hand and snapped his fingers. Kacha kacha! The 7 rings that looked like the crosshairs of a sniper rifle scope with a cross removed in the middle immediately rotated. In the midst of a mechanical cracking sound, they disassembled once again. In the end, they turned into pieces of pitch-black steel plates that had the outline of wings. The tips were pointed in front of Noah. In the next second, the tips of all the pitch-black wings flashed with a touch of light. Swish, 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 swish. Without any warning, the tips of the pitch-black wings floating around Noah shot out tiny beams of light. That was a laser. Streams of laser beams cut through the space like streaks of light descending from the sky, landing on the wall in front of them like raindrops. Bang, 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 bang. Suddenly, a series of explosions sounded on the solid wall. Gravel also splashed up and fell to the ground. When the laser stopped shooting and the sound of the explosion disappeared, the wall that was covered by the laser was not only riddled with holes like a hornet's nest, but every hole was also charred black and emitted light smoke. Seeing this, Lilith, 99 lunar nights, and 3 kingdoms narrowed their eyes. It can shoot lasers? 99 lunar nights turned her head and looked straight at Noah. Is this the true power of your blaze? Hearing this, Noah glanced at 99 lunar nights and didn't say anything. He reached out his hand and snapped his fingers again. Pa! At the same time the sound of the snap echoed clearly, the pitch-black steel wings floating around Noah trembled. As if they were blown by a whirlwind, they madly danced in the air. Kacha, kacha. The familiar mechanical cracking sound rang out once again. All of the pitch-black steel wings disintegrated, and as they danced in the air, they actually formed straight heavy cannons. Then, the muzzles of the heavy cannons gathered light. Seeing the muzzles of the heavy cannons filled with light, how could Lilith and 99 lunar nights not understand what was going to happen next? Could it be? Lilith sucked in a breath of cold air and said involuntarily, "It can shoot laser cannons?" Not only laser cannons. Noah, who had lowered his hand, seemed to be very satisfied with the power displayed by his blaze. It was rare for him to be so excited as he explained. Laser cannons, flame cannons, electromagnetic cannons. Frost bombs, explosive bombs, smoke bombs, light missiles. Depending on the combination method, these can all be launched. Noah looked at the shocked Lilith, and the corners of his mouth curled into a joyful arc. This is a power that has a myriad of forms and effects. A myriad of forms? Lilith murmured as if she was dreaming. A myriad of forms? 99 lunar nights' expression also changed. That's why it's called magician, right? Noah smiled and stretched out his hand. The light on the muzzles of the pitch-black heavy cannons immediately dissipated. Whing! With a trembling sound, the pitch-black heavy cannons disintegrated. The fragments didn't recombine into other forms. Instead, they floated down to Noah's outstretched hand and formed a large-caliber modified revolver. It couldn't be said to be a combination, but rather a return to its original state. The revolver in his hand turned into a blue flame and disappeared. Noah held his hand, his eyes also fluctuating with a look of surprise. It was indeed a surprise. Noah didn't think that his blaze of the revolver would actually hide the power of the magician. Depending on the combination, it could derive different forms and different effects, reproducing all kinds of powerful and strange weapons. Wasn't this the same as that a magician that could continuously bring all kinds of surprises and changes? Most importantly, whether it was the laser, or the missiles, they were all transformed from Noah's mental strength. In other words, as Noah's mental strength increased, the power of the various weapons produced by the magician would also increase accordingly. If Noah released all of his power, that a magician would definitely be amazing. Thinking of this, Noah was pleasantly surprised and also regretful. Of course, regretful was the strengthening effect of the Daybreak Star rune. This time, leveling up to Grade 4, gave Noah the benefits of using the true power of Blaze. However, the benefits in terms of enhancement were really negligible, to the point where there was none. Therefore, Noah knew that the Daybreak Star rune could no longer bring him any strengthening effect. How could this not be regretful? However, the Daybreak Star rune brought Noah a lot of benefits, increasing Noah's overall strength by a lot, so there was nothing to complain about. What's more, this time, in addition to the revolver's real power, Noah's other blaze also had its real power activated. Thinking of the power of his other blaze, Noah's mood suddenly became a lot better. As for Lilith, 99 lunar nights, and the 3 kingdoms, they seemed to be immersed in the power of Noah's magician, and were silent for a while as if digesting it. After a while, 99 lunar nights opened her mouth. What an amazing power! Amazing? How could amazing be used to describe it? It must be known that even if it was a surpasser, only those who had reached level 3 and above could more or less see the trajectory of a bullet. Only those who had reached level 4 could rely on their own strength to dodge a bullet. Even ordinary bullets needed to be at least level 3 to have a way to deal with them, let alone lasers, and other such existences. To put it bluntly, with the power of Noah's magician, let alone ordinary level 4, even at the level V, like the Moonlight Glass Rabbit, or even higher existences might not be able to deal with it. For the blaze to have this degree of power, even the highest person in charge of the Dawn organization, 99 lunar nights, had never seen it before. As expected of the exception with the special blaze. 99 lunar nights laughed, laughing extremely happily. The soul light that you displayed, I have indeed received it. Saying this, 99 lunar nights turned around. Go back and properly prepare. Before leaving, 99 lunar nights left behind such a sentence. Soon, you will have to go on a long trip. Noah and Lilith were both stunned. Chapter 254. Yay, in the classroom, Ivanli and Ya high-fived each other, their faces brimming with happiness. That's great. Ivanli looked around at his surroundings and nodded in satisfaction. Everyone successfully ascended, that's great. On the side, Ya also couldn't hide her happiness and nodded. Orange Bar also had a smile on his face. Even the ahog on Julie's head was swaying back and forth, clearly in a very good mood. At the end of the semester, all of the freshmen had successfully ascended to level 2. Not a single one of them had failed. This wasn't strange. After all, after a few months of training and perseverance, those who couldn't endure it all applied to drop out of school and advance and return to the world of ordinary people. Those who stayed behind naturally all had good perseverance. Under the situation where their body and mind were fully trained, it was only at level 2, if they still couldn't successfully ascend, that would be really strange. Therefore, right now, the entire classroom was filled with a joyous atmosphere. Almost everyone had a smile on their face, some even had their arms around each other's shoulders, they were simply extremely excited. And among the group of students who obtained good results in the previous New Blade battle, and obtained an additional chance to ascend to level 2, there were a few groups that regretfully failed to ascend. Now, they had a high fever and returned to the dormitory to rest. Those who successfully ascended to level 3 had 3 groups of double-tripping blades. The first group, Ivanli and Julie. The second group, Orange Bar and Ya. The third group, Kujuryu and Oki Hokusaki. Basically, they were all familiar people. And in addition to these three groups of double-tripping blades, there was another group of double-tripping blades that also successfully ascended. Naturally, it was Noah and Lilith. It's just that Noah ascended to level 4, and Lilith ascended to level 3. Being promoted to level 3 means that we have successfully been promoted to the 3rd grade. Furthermore, we have finally obtained a graduation certificate and the qualifications to enter the Dawn organization to work. Orange Bar also looked around at the crowd. It seems that until graduation, or even when we enter the Dawn organization, our group can stay together. Yes. Ye heaved a huge sigh of relief, causing her pair of huge and round breasts to jiggle up and down. I don't have to worry about being expelled anymore. It's great that I can graduate successfully and stay with everyone. Enter the Dawn organization to work. Ivan clasped his hands together and placed them in front of his chest as if he was grateful. His face was full of excitement. After all, Ivanli's goal was to enter the Dawn organization and earn a lot of money to revitalize his family business. Now that he had successfully reached rank 3, it meant that Ivanli's goal was more than 90% achieved. All he had to do was to complete his 3 years in the academy and get his graduation certificate, then he would be able to achieve his goal. Therefore, among the people present, if there was one person who was the happiest about today's successful ascension, it would definitely be Ivan. Yeah, Julie nodded in agreement. Then, she turned around and looked at Noah. It's great to be with Noah all the time. The joyful atmosphere that filled the air suddenly froze for a moment. The line of girls' eyes were cast on Noah almost at the same time. Noah, who was trying to figure out the true meaning of the words of the 99 lunar nights, didn't participate in the girls' conversation, and didn't hear Julie's words, but he felt a lot of eyes on him. He was stunned and confused. What's wrong? Hee. Lilith, who was sitting next to Noah, smiled sweetly. Everyone is just feeling that Noah is very popular. Is that so? Noah, who was under the pressure of the girls' gazes, was a little restless and smiled bitterly. Is it okay? Sigh. Looking at Noah's bitter smile, Ivanli sighed, narrowed his eyes, and looked at Noah. And then? You should tell us, right? Tell you? Noah asked in confusion. Tell you what? Does it even need to be said? Ivanli's eyes lit up. Of course, it's the true power hidden in your blaze after you've leveled up to rank 4. Hearing this, Julie, Orange, and Ya all looked at Noah with anticipation. It was obvious that they were very interested in the true power of the blaze that Noah obtained after reaching level 4. It couldn't be helped. After the Moonsight Glass Rabbit's display last time, the girls all knew how strong the true power of the blaze was. Plus, Noah's blaze was an extremely special revolver that shouldn't appear, so it was normal for them to be curious. Hurry up and tell us. Ivanli said with anticipation. Then what is it? Lilith, you also know what kind of power Noah's blaze has, right? Julie glanced at Lilith expressionlessly. Then I also want to know what the true power of Noah's blaze is. Can you not have a sense of resistance in such a strange place? Lilith turned her head with dissatisfaction. Besides, Noah is my tripping twin blades. Isn't it normal for him to understand his tripping twin blades the most? No. Julie shook her head. The person who understands Noah the most should be the person closest to Noah. So that is me. Of course not. All right. I'm scared of you guys. Seeing that Julie and Lilith were about to start their daily quarrel, Noah quickly stopped them. You guys can even fight over this kind of thing. I really have to hand it to you guys. After saying this, Noah was about to explain the matter of the magician, but at this moment, a voice came from the classroom door and stopped him. Attention. Everyone, pay attention. Sukujuri Bunny clapped her hands and shouted with a sweet voice. Noah Doria, Lilith Bristow, Julie Sigtuna, Iwanri Nagakura, Tachaba, Takaya Hoy, Kyujituryu, Kukui Hokusaki, the 8 of you, now go to the chairman's office. All the people whose names were called, including Noah, were astonished. Tomorrow, everyone will come with me to participate in a field study. When they arrived at the chairman's office, 99 lunar nights, who was sitting behind a luxurious desk, said this sentence that shocked everyone present. Field study? Noah, who was standing at the side of the group, as if he wanted to hide in the corner and not participate, frowned. Study. This was not unfamiliar to Noah and the others. The school had long since stipulated that students who had reached rank 3 would basically be given the opportunity to participate in the study as much as possible. Because, if they joined the Dawn organization's peace force, they would become a tomb guardian, and in the future, they would need to participate in all kinds of life-threatening missions. In order to let the students be able to smoothly carry out missions after graduation, the school hoped that the rank 3 students would be able to familiarize themselves with the process of every mission, so as to avoid losing their lives when the time came. Therefore, the school would generally arrange some study for the rank 3 students, so that they could familiarize themselves with the future work. Tsukujiri Bunny had mentioned this matter more than once in class. And now, that day had finally arrived. But, wasn't it a bit too fast? Undoubtedly, 7 of the 8 people here had just been promoted to a rank 3, right? This was the doubt in everyone's mind, including Noah. 99 lunar nights, however, did not pay attention to everyone's doubts and continued to speak. In the first semester of the school's first year, there were already 8 people who obtained the qualifications to study. This year, we have gathered a lot of outstanding students, and I feel very gratified. In order to let everyone make more progress, I sincerely look forward to the results of this study. Because this study was decided very suddenly, if you have any inconvenience, you can ask and apply to withdraw from this study. Next to 99 lunar nights, 3 kingdoms continued from the chairman's words. If it is really inconvenient to participate, we will also allow you to withdraw. This sentence made everyone look at each other. Chapter 255. Quit. No matter what other people thought, Noah really had the idea of quitting after hearing it. Because, there was no need to participate at all, right? To put it bluntly, the purpose of the study arranged by the academy was to allow the students to put the knowledge they had learned into practice and to increase the success rate of becoming a tomb protector in the future. And that would only happen when he joined the Dawn organization 3 years later. 3 years. Would Noah stay in this world for 3 years? To be honest, that would be a bit difficult. Therefore, for Noah, who would most likely leave this world in 3 years and go to other worlds to find a world fragment and would not become a tomb guardian, this study was really meaningless. What's more, when he was in the world of the Dark Bullet, in order to get a police license, Noah participated in various lectures and exercises. Although those lectures and exercises were related to the work of the police, and most of them were specifically targeted at primitive animals, Noah also carried out various missions in Fairy Tale. For missions, Noah had already mastered a lot of skills, knowledge, and experience. And since the Tomb Guardian was an underground character who suppressed crime, it should not be much different from the work of the Magic Guide Guild and the police. If he had the time to participate in this kind of study, Noah would rather familiarize himself with the power he obtained after reaching grade 4 in the school. The power hidden in the knight's sword and the revolver, the 2 blaze weapons. Thinking like this, when Noah was about to apply for quitting, a strange feeling suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart, making Noah's heart move. He changed the topic and asked a question. What is the main content of the study this time? The other people who had fallen into deep thought also suppressed the thoughts in their hearts and turned their gazes to the 99 lunar nights. 99 lunar nights thought for a moment, then raised his head. Originally, I shouldn't have exposed the contents of the mission without confirming that you are indeed participating in the research, but since the person who asked is an exception, I will also make an exception and make an exception. Saying this, 99th lunar nights expressionlessly began to explain the mission. As you all know, because it's a field study, the study we arranged will indeed be issued to the tomb protectors of the Dawn Organization's security force to complete some low-risk missions. Therefore, even if it's just a study, the mission this time really does exist. Everyone nodded in agreement. In fact, even if it wasn't a dangerous mission, it was still ridiculous for a group of students who hadn't graduated yet to participate in it. However, there was no shortage of ridiculous things in this school. In other words, when they were mentally prepared, they had long accepted this level of absurdity. The mission this time is actually to protect something very important. 99th Lunar Knight's deep eyes flickered as he spoke. Recently, the Dawn organization accidentally discovered a strange item that couldn't be analyzed. A strange item that even the Dawn organization couldn't analyze? Noah raised his eyebrows. Let alone Noah, even Lilith and the others were stunned. What was the Dawn organization? On the surface, it was an organization that conducted genetic research, but in the dark, the Dawn organization was rich in surpassers. They were active in the underground of this country and could be considered as the inner world of this country. They even had a close relationship with the country and secretly had a lot of power. Why was it that surpassers, this kind of special existence, had not been known by the people of the ordinary world until now? Why was Haolang Academy, which nurtured surpassers, a school that not many people knew about? This was all because the Dawn organization had a close relationship with the country and secretly controlled the information in the dark. It could be said that the Dawn organization represented the inner world of this country and was the country's most secretive but also the largest force in this country. In addition, it was a research organization itself. With the current level of scientific development, what could they not analyze? When he heard that there was such a strange existence, the inexplicable feeling in Noah's heart that prevented him from leaving just now became stronger and stronger. It made him react and look at 99 lunar nights. What is that thing? If I knew what it was, I wouldn't use the term strange item to describe it. 99 lunar nights glanced at Noah. We call it a broken feather because its appearance is similar to a broken feather. This sentence was like a clap of thunder and also like a fuse. Not only did it ignite the strange feeling that suddenly rose in Noah's heart, it also exploded in Noah's mind. Its appearance was similar to a broken feather? And there was no way to analyze it? Why did he have such an inexplicable feeling about it? All these signs made Noah's eyes gradually brighten. Noah had enough reason to believe. The so-called broken feather that the Dawn organization found was the world fragment that he was looking for. Noah's original intuition came true once again. After entering Haolang Academy, he could indeed find clues about the world fragment. As for the fact that the Dawn organization found the world fragment, Noah was not surprised. After all, the world fragment existed in many different ways. Some were like possessing Mavis' tombstone, where only Noah and Mavis could see and touch them. Some were like in the world of the black bullet, where they would automatically appear when certain conditions were met, but only Noah could see and touch them. Naturally, there would also be some world fragments that no one could see or touch. Of course, the Dawn organization wanting to analyze the world fragment was purely a joke. If they could even analyze the composition of a world fragment, then the Dawn organization could forget about creating surpassers and directly create a world. While Noah was immersed in the joy of finding the world fragment, 99 lunar nights continued to explain. The reason why I asked you to protect the broken feather is because the news of the Dawn organization accidentally obtaining a strange item that could not be analyzed has been leaked. Many famous people from all over the world have expressed their desire to visit the broken feather. 99 lunar nights looked around at everyone. Because of this reason, the Dawn organization has already decided to hold an appreciation party the day after tomorrow. At that time, famous people from all over the world will come to this country. So that's how it is. Lilith's green eyes slightly narrowed. Among them are some people who are especially interested in the broken feather and might use some crude methods to obtain it. The Dawn organization is quite famous in the industry, and they can't avoid offending people. For something that even the Dawn organization can't analyze, it's not strange for people to want to get their hands on it. 99th Lunar Night shook her head and looked at the students one by one. Don't think that this mission is simple. If someone really chooses to make a move on the day of the appreciation party, then that person is definitely an existence that can surpass humans. An existence that can surpass humans? Everyone suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Ivan hurriedly said. Isn't surpassers only found in the Dawn organization? That is indeed the case. 99 Lunar Knights said with a smile that was not a smile. But, who told you that only surpassers can surpass humans? Everyone's face suddenly froze. Noah and Lilith looked at each other and secretly nodded. Indeed. Not only surpassers. The God Destroyer unit can also surpass humans. Of course, you don't have to be so worried. In addition to you, the members of the Peace unit will also participate in this mission. Moreover, in order to be able to take care of each other when necessary, this time you will not directly stand on the surface, but will disguise yourselves as guests of the appreciation party. After that, 99 Lunar Knights looked at the three kingdoms beside her. The three kingdoms immediately took out a document and walked out. If you all have decided to participate, I will now announce the identity that I have arranged for you. Chapter 256. 10 minutes later, looking at Noah and the others who walked out of the office one after another, a smile slowly appeared on 99 Lunar Knight's exquisite, pretty face that was like a doll. Three Kingdoms, who was standing beside 99 Lunar Knight like a guard, suddenly spoke. Is this really okay? Hearing this, 99 Lunar Knight not only did not stop smiling, but the smile on her face became wider and wider. Are you referring to the appreciation meeting? Yes. Three Kingdoms said expressionlessly. Although I know you must have a reason for doing this, but I personally think that holding an appreciation meeting in our country and receiving everyone regardless of who comes will bring you a lot of danger. Three Kingdoms did not believe that 99 Lunar Knight did not understand this. Therefore, this was also the reason why Three Kingdoms could not understand 99 Lunar Knight's actions. As a special item that even the Dawn organization could not analyze and was obtained by chance, how could the existence of the shattered feather be leaked so easily? Only Three Kingdoms knew that the person who leaked the information of the shattered feather and attracted the attention of many people in the industry was not someone else, but the person in charge of the Dawn organization, 99 Lunar Knight. What was the reason for doing this? Three Kingdoms had accompanied 99 Lunar Knight for a long time, so Three Kingdoms could more or less guess 99 Lunar Knight's thoughts. However, Three Kingdoms felt that this was not worth it. That exception is indeed very special, even more special than special and ability, but it should not be to the point where you would not hesitate to set up such a situation to give him a trial, right? Yes. A situation. This was only a situation set up by 99 Lunar Knight. At the same time, it was also a trial given by 99 Lunar Knight. And the purpose of doing this was very simple. The so-called soul is an existence that can be tempered when people burst out with strong willpower. 99 Lunar Knight seemed to be very happy with a smile, as if there was still a certain person's back in her eyes. She kept looking in the direction of the office door. And the light of his soul, if it can be tempered under the trial of the witch, it will be even more dazzling, right? 99 Lunar Knight was very interested in Noah, very interested to the point of almost placing hope on him. Everyone had a soul. Just like how humans were different, everyone's soul was different as well. This could be seen from the fact that every surpasser's blaze was different. Naturally, there were differences in the strength of a person's soul. The strength of this part of the soul was not obvious before reaching level 4, but once one reached level 4, the strength of one's soul could be more or less determined. This could be seen from the weapon that represented the soul, Blaze's true power. Once he reached level 4, the true power hidden within the blaze would be awakened. At this time, if a person's soul was strong, then the power hidden within the blaze would also be astonishing. On the contrary, if the soul was weak, then the power hidden within the blaze would also be relatively weak. However, the true power hidden within Noah's blaze greatly shocked 99th Lunar Knight. A myriad of forms and effects. The ability to reproduce all kinds of modern, and even surpasser-era weapons. For a surpasser who could barely see the trajectory of an ordinary bullet after reaching level 3, and could only dodge an ordinary bullet after reaching level 4. How powerful was that? 99th Lunar Knight didn't doubt it in the slightest. Even if Noah was currently only at level 4, once he unlocked the power of the magician, even if he didn't rely on his own astonishing battle techniques and battle experience, just the power of the blaze alone would be able to surpass ranks and defeat opponents. And this was still the current situation. She believed that once Noah's power became stronger and stronger, reproducing nuclear weapons or even stronger weapons wouldn't be a dream. At that time, how powerful would Noah's soul be? Would he be able to reach the ultimate realm that she yearned for even in her dreams? In order to use her own eyes to verify this point, 99th Lunar Knight purposely spread the news of the shattered feather, and purposely held this so-called appreciation convention. After all, no matter how miraculous the shattered feather was, it was still something of the Dawn organization. With the Dawn organization secretly controlling the power of the entire country, there was no need for them to go through so much trouble to hold an appreciation convention just because other people wanted to see the shattered feather. Not to mention, it would also attract the greed of some people with ulterior motives. With the shattered feather as bait, and with the fact that I will also be there on that day, I have a feeling that the day of the appreciation convention will be very lively. 99th Lunar Knight's eyes flashed with a resolute light. Everything is for the sake of achieving absolute duo. There were many places in the school for students to rest and leisurely spend their free time. For example, there was a flower garden with all kinds of famous flowers. There was a large plaza that was flexibly designed with architectural aesthetics. There were cherry blossom trees that practically covered the entire school. There were even unique-shaped pavilions. In terms of environment alone, there was no school that could surpass Haolang School. Therefore, in normal times, these beautiful and freehand places would usually be occupied by students, and they would spend their free time there. Unfortunately, today was the end of the semester, and the students who had already completed the ascension ritual were allowed to go home and visit their families. As a result, there were many good places in the school today that were empty. With Noah in the lead, Lilith, Ivanli, Julie, Tachaba, Kujituryu, and Kurosaki Hokusaki gathered in a pavilion, either standing or sitting. Everyone in the group, including Noah, was looking at a document in their hands. It was given to everyone by the Three Kingdoms when they decided to participate in the field study arranged by 99th Lunar Knight. Not only did it have the basic purpose of this study, the content, and various other introductions, it also had a different identity for each person here. 99th Lunar Knight also said that for this study, Noah and the others did not need to perform protection tasks like the Guardian of the Tomb in the Dawn organization. Instead, they were disguised as members of the Guardian of the Tomb and attended the appreciation of Broken Feather as guests. The document had the identity that the Dawn organization arranged for Noah and the others. It was worth mentioning that when everyone present finished reading the document in their hands, or to be more precise, after reading the identity of the disguise described in the document, many people directly stared, their mouths twitched, then raised their heads and looked at each other. The entire scene fell into a strange silence. After a while, except for Lilith, everyone tacitly put the page of the document in their hands that recorded the identity of the disguise on the stone table in the pavilion. Noah, the young executive director of an unnamed company under the Dawn organization. Ivanli, the young executive director maid of the company. Julie, the young executive director maid of the company. The young executive director maid of the company. Tachaba, the young executive director maid of the company. Kyujuru, the bodyguard of the young executive director. Hokusaki, the bodyguard of the young executive director. Are you playing with me? Hokusaki's fierce face showed an angry expression. Why should I be the young master's bodyguard? Bodyguard? Kyujuru only sighed. It's not that hard to accept. Compared to the male side, the female side had a variety of reactions as well. Maid? Ivanli was shocked. The executive director maid? Isn't Noah the executive director? That means. Ye secretly glanced at Noah and blushed. Want to be Noah's maid? Julie tilted her head and looked like she was lost in thought. Head maid, head maid, head maid. Tachaba stared at Noah's face and muttered nervously. After a while, her face was completely red and she shouted at Noah in panic. Shameless. Noah was speechless. What the hell are you thinking about? Chapter 257. Why do we have to be your bodyguards? Inside the pavilion, Akui Tokusaki, who was leaning against a pillar, looked at Noah with dissatisfaction. Do I look like a bodyguard to you? Hearing this, everyone present turned their eyes to Kue Tokusaki. Then they looked at each other and burst out laughing. That was true. Although Kawai Tokusaki was a little short, he had a fierce face and a bad tone. He could definitely scare away a lot of timid people. For such a person to be a bodyguard, it wasn't unsuitable. Well, little tiger, am I not a bodyguard too? Ninefold Toru held back his laughter and patted Kawai on the shoulder. Also, being a bodyguard is not bad. At least I don't have to interact with those celebrities on the day of the appreciation party. This kind of appreciation party was like a ball. In order to expand their network, the celebrities gathered together would definitely interact with all kinds of people at the appreciation party. They would even find Noah and his group in disguise. In such a situation, if one's disguise was not good enough, or even if one did not look like a person from a prestigious family, not only would it be very embarrassing, it would also arouse suspicion. Furthermore, if it attracted the attention of a large number of people, then it would not achieve the purpose of secretly taking care of each other. It was also because of this that among the group, Noah, who had the highest rank, the strongest strength, the best temperament, and the most stable personality, was judged by 99 lunar nights to be suitable to be a celebrity in disguise. On the day of the appreciation party, everyone present was a celebrity. Therefore, if they wanted someone to hide their identity and sneak into the appreciation meeting, they would have to have someone with a high social status. Because of this, after the Dawn organization confirmed that Noah would participate in this mission, they immediately replaced the names of the directors of the companies not under the Dawn organization with Noah's name, allowing Noah to sneak into the appreciation party as a celebrity. As expected of the Dawn organization, they even have an anonymous company. I'm afraid they set it up to be useful in times like this, right? Orange Bar had a headache. By the way, isn't there Lilith among the celebrities? Lilith herself is a celebrity, right? That's exactly why it won't work. Lilith, who had been silent all this while, threw the document in her hand on the table and said with dissatisfaction and helplessness. Bristow is too famous. When everyone gathered around to take a look, they didn't know what to say. Indeed, Bristol was too famous. Everyone in the industry knew that the Bristol Company was one of the investors of the Dawn organization. Under such circumstances, even if Lilith attended the appreciation meeting, she would not be able to disguise herself as a guest and secretly take care of him. After all, everyone knew that the daughter of the president of Bristol was a member of the Dawn organization. How was he going to disguise himself? Therefore, Lilith's mission was different from that of Noah's group. Instead of taking care of them in secret, she directly appeared as the daughter of the Bristow family and gathered the attention of those who were interested in her, allowing Noah and the others to operate in secret. Noah, who had been silent all this time, rubbed his forehead and muttered to himself. He agreed to attend this field study in order to recover the world fragment. In other words, if there were unscrupulous people who would appear on the day of the appreciation meeting and want to make a move on the shattered feather, then Noah would be this so-called unscrupulous person. In this way, wouldn't Noah become the enemy of Lilith and the others in this mission? Noah secretly smiled bitterly in his heart, and at the same time, he also made up his mind. This time, he would quietly take action in the dark to recover the world fragment. Otherwise, if he directly touched the world fragment, the probability of meeting Lilith and the others was almost 100%. This must be avoided. Disguise? Let me disguise myself thoroughly. Lilith. Noah, who had made a decision in his heart, turned his head and looked at Lilith. You are attending the appreciation meeting as the daughter of the Bristow family. If there is really someone who wants to make a move on the shattered feather at the appreciation meeting, it is very likely that they will target you. You have to be careful. Hearing this, Lilith was startled, and then suddenly smiled. Are you concerned about me? What a gentle, double-edged sword these words made Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and you react slightly. Their gazes were filled with disdain, vigilance, anger, shyness, and so on. They all cast their gazes on Noah. Lilith. Noah couldn't help but cover his face. Why are you talking about those things again? I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Lilith smiled and hugged Noah's arm, put her face close to Noah's ear, and whispered words that made people think of graceful. Seeing that you are so gentle, tonight, I will give you a special thank you. As soon as he heard Lilith's words, Noah secretly said in his heart, not good. Hee hee. The contempt in Ivanli's eyes became more and more intense. Not bad, right? Please let go. As if she was greatly stimulated, Julie copied Lilith and hugged Noah's other arm, her deep red eyes staring at Lilith. Noah will be very troubled. Jolie-chan. Ye blushed and was at a loss of what to do. You. Noah will also be troubled by you like this. As for Tachibana, he looked at Lilith, then at Julie, and then at Noah, who was tightly hugged by the golden girl and the silver girl. His pretty face was red, and he turned around and ran away hysterically. Noah, this shameless person. Noah felt that he had the right to feel tired, and also the right to express that he couldn't keep up with this group of people's thoughts. Undoubtedly, they were still talking about the mission a minute ago, and now it suddenly became like this. What are they trying to do? Ahaha. Ninefold Toru laughed mockingly and looked at Noah with a sympathetic gaze. You've been working hard. Humph. Kwai Hokusaki crossed her arms, turned her head, and threw out this sentence. Idiot. With these words as the conclusion, the day was still as noisy as ever. Of course, at night, Noah fell into a deep sleep, surrounded by the soft and delicate bodies of the two foreign beauties who represented the sun and the moon. The next day, at the school gate, Noah, Ninefold Toru, and Kwai Hokusaki were all there. However, the three of them weren't wearing their usual uniforms. Noah was wearing an extremely noble tuxedo. The hem of his black suit hung behind him like a swallow's tail. The tie in front of him had a pure gold buckle, and the leather boots on his feet sparkled under the sunlight. Coupled with Promise's otherworldly temperament, if not for the fact that he was standing in front of the school gate, he would have looked like a young master of a prestigious family. On the other hand, Kujituryu and Kawai Hokusaki were wearing standard suits and sunglasses. They looked like they were from the underworld, which made people not dare to compliment them. If the three of them stood together, it would give the impression of a rich young master and bodyguard. However, if the young master of a prestigious family and his bodyguard were to stand at the entrance of the school, it would seem somewhat out of place. This made Noah, Ninefold Toru, and Kwai Hokusaki a little uncomfortable. What was even more uncomfortable was that the three of them had to wear this outfit to take the monorail. They had to wait until they left the artificial island where the school was located before they could board the car specially prepared by the Dawn organization and go to the venue of the appreciation party. Wearing this to take the monorail? Fortunately, the monorail was only available to students from the school. Now that the students were on vacation, if they had to take the monorail in front of so many people, not to mention Ninefold Toru and Kwai Hokusaki, even Noah would want to die. Still not here yet? Kwai Hokusaki, who had the worst temper, complained for the umpteenth time. What the hell are those girls doing? The boys had already changed their clothes 20 minutes ago. Lilith and Sarah had already taken the helicopter to the venue. Only Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and Ye had yet to show up. Girls sure take a long time to change. Ninefold Toru pulled at his bow tie and sighed. Let's just endure it. Noah, who was wearing a tuxedo, crossed his arms and looked around in boredom. However, when his eyes inadvertently swept across the school, Noah's eyes widened and his mouth slightly opened. Over there, 4 girls were bashfully pushing and pulling each other as they slowly walked over. Chapter 258. The cherry blossoms slowly fell with the gentle breeze, like a pink and light curtain of rain, covering the entire school gate. Against the backdrop of the cherry blossoms, 4 wonderful girls walked over step by step. Some were embarrassed, some were curious, some were bashful, and some were unbearably bashful. Noah, Kawaii, and Tokasaki, who were standing at the school gate, couldn't look away. The 4 girls were all beautiful and charming in various aspects. Their brown, silver, black, and brown hair swayed gently in the wind along with the pink cherry blossoms around them. Then, on the 4 girls, a set of clothes of the same color and style covered their delicate bodies. To be honest, whether it was Noah, Kawaii, or Tokasaki, this was the first time they had seen that set of clothes. Tsukimi Glass Rabbit's was a modified version. It was a black dress with a white apron. The style of the clothes was extremely simple. Undoubtedly, such a simple set of clothes, when worn by the beautiful girls, gave off a unique feeling that could attract the attention of the opposite sex. There was a bow on the back, and the edges of the apron and skirt were full of pleated lace. Even the girls wore white pleated hair rings on their heads. However, this wasn't the most eye-catching part. The most eye-catching part was that the skirt of the clothes only reached a little below the thighs. It was as if the private area that made a man's blood boil would be exposed at any time. Thus, Noah, who had been baptized by Lilith and Julie's naked bodies every night, had some immunity. Kawaii and Tokasaki's faces turned red. Of course, although Noah's face didn't turn red, his gaze was also involuntarily attracted by the 4 girls in maid outfits. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Sensing Noah's gaze, the red-faced orange bar tugged at the hem of her skirt with all her might and shouted at Noah in shame and indignation. Don't stare. Ugh. Ya's face was also red as she pressed down on the hem of her skirt. What she didn't know was that this action of leaning forward made a pair of large soft places in front of her chest shake, causing Kawaii and Tokasaki to reflexively cover their noses. Only Julia blinked her eyes and curiously looked at the clothes on her body, as if she was just curious. As usual, her shyness was completely different from the others, and she even seemed to be in a good mood. Ma. A hint of awkwardness also appeared on Ivanli's face, but she forced herself to remain calm and put on a fake smile. This is also a mission. She said it twice. It was as if she was reminding herself. However, this reminder woke up the group of pitiful men. Immediately, Totoro and Kawaii Hokusaki turned their heads away awkwardly. They didn't dare to look at the group of girls again, fearing that they would lose their composure again. As for Noah, he bitterly smiled, and said, he had been silent for a long time. Even if it's for a mission, isn't this maid outfit a little too much? Although he hadn't seen anyone wear it before today, except for a certain rabbit's modified version, Noah knew that even maid outfits had more conservative styles. Ivanli, Julie, Tachaba, and Ya's outfits, although they weren't exactly revealing, would definitely attract the attention of the pitiful opposite sex. Mainly the lower half, of course. A large part of her upper body was also exposed, but it was mainly her neck and the sides of her collarbone, which were still passable. Only Ya's chest, which had an explosive figure, looked like it would burst at any time. Her clothes were pushed up high, and her cleavage was almost exposed. That's why I'm against wearing this shameless outfit, Tachaba said with tears in her eyes. But Tsukumi-sensei said this is the only outfit. Noah laughed dryly. Tsukumi-sensei? Did the rabbit prepare these clothes? That black-bellied rabbit must have purposely prepared this outfit for fun, right? If it was any other time, with Tachiba's calmness and intelligence, she would definitely be able to guess Tsukumi's sinister intentions. However, challenging a girl's heart like this was Tachiba's biggest weakness. Just a little bit was enough to make her lose her sense of propriety, causing her to explode with shame and lose her cool, falling for Tsukumi's trick. You don't like this outfit? Julie, who had been expressionless from start to finish, asked doubtfully. I think it's not bad, it's very cooling. Everyone was speechless. Does Julie, who is afraid of heat, only pay attention to this part of the clothes on my body? Ugh. You had to cover her upper half and lower half. Her face was already so red that tears were about to flow out. She secretly glanced at Noah, and when she realized that Noah's gaze was still on her, her face turned even redder, and she spoke in a low voice as if she was about to cry. Don't look, Noah quickly averted his gaze. Really, that's why I say you guys are really infuriating, Ivanli said in a huff, and it was obvious that he was targeting Noah. Hurry up and get on the tram, or we won't make it in time. Only then did Noah react. He adjusted his emotions, coughed dryly, and turned around. Okay, everyone, let's go. Yes. As if they were in character, the group of men and women nodded and responded. On the vast road, an extremely luxurious limousine was moving at a leisurely pace. Not long after, the luxurious limousine slowly slowed down and came to a stop in front of a luxurious hotel. Then, it stopped in front of a red carpet at the entrance. Gotcha. The sound of the door opening sounded. Wearing a suit and a pair of sunglasses, Kiryu Tsukumi and Oki Tokisaki immediately got off the car and came to the back door. One stood guard, and the other respectfully opened the door for Ivanli, Julie, Tachaba, and Nya to get off. Swish. At this moment, a group of men in black suits standing guard and patrolling around the hotel simultaneously turned their gaze over. Being stared at by those ferocious-looking men in black, whether it was Ivanli, Julie, Tachaba, Nya, Kyujujuturyu, or Kawai Tokisaki, all of their hearts skipped a beat, and they became nervous. At this time, Noah got off the limousine. Under the gaze of the surrounding men in black, Noah looked around. His eyes were calm. After a while, he stepped on the red carpet and walked toward the entrance of the hotel. At this time, a man in black blocked in front of Noah. Dear guest, today's hotel has been booked for a special event that will last for 2 days. Therefore, today and tomorrow, we will only receive guests with invitations. I'm sorry, but do you have an invitation with you? Being stopped as soon as they came up, the group of girls and boys who were facing an extremely formal and high-end situation for the first time secretly became nervous. Fortunately, the surrounding people's eyes were all attracted by the otherworldly Noah. Their eyes involuntarily fell on Noah, and they did not pay attention to the group of maids and bodyguards. Noah glanced at the man in black blocking the way. Bah. Yes. Tachaba did not know if it was because of nervousness, but his voice was a little higher than usual. However, he still tried to suppress his inner nervousness, stepped forward, and took out an invitation. This appreciation party was organized by the Dawn organization. As people arranged by the Dawn organization, Noah and his group certainly did not have an invitation. Sorry, I'm sorry. After checking the invitation, the man in black immediately became respectful. He bent down and made a "please" gesture to Noah. Guest, please enter the venue first. The formal appreciation party will be held tomorrow. Today, we will entertain all of you. There will also be a ball in the evening. At that time, if you are interested, you can go to the ballroom on the 10th floor to participate. After saying that, the man in black retreated and was replaced by a young girl dressed as a waitress. This guest, please follow me. Noah nodded and walked into the hotel under the guidance of the waitress. Under the guidance of the waitress, Noah and his group arrived at the reception hall on the 5th floor. When the elevator door opened, in front of them, there were many people in noble suits looking over and sizing up Noah. Chapter 259. Who is that? He's quite young. So young, which famous family did he come from? Most of the people present were celebrities, or they were brought here by celebrities. For example, Noah, after disguising himself as the executive director of the unnamed company under the Dawn organization, he also brought Ivanli, Julie, Tachaba, Nya, and 2 bodyguards, Kyujuturyu and Oki Hokusaki. Therefore, those who would be here were either celebrities or people under celebrities. After all, they were celebrities, so they wouldn't point and talk like passers-by. After looking at Noah, they began to guess Noah's identity, but they didn't discuss it. Although they didn't discuss it openly, the scrutinizing gazes that were cast in their direction from time to time made Ivanli, Tachibana, Yuju Aturyu, Kurosaki, and the others secretly nervous. Noah ignored those scrutinizing gazes and glanced around the entire venue. He only stopped when he saw the wall on the side. On both sides of the venue, there were people in black suits standing side by side on the left side of the wall. They were obviously bodyguards, and there was a group of maids standing side by side on the right side of the wall. Although the bodyguards and the maids were wearing the same clothes, there were still some differences between them. Noah understood what was going on. These bodyguards and maids should be brought here by the celebrities in the venue. With the identity of bodyguards and maids, there was naturally no way to enter the social circle of the celebrities. Therefore, the bodyguards and maids should be arranged to one side to wait for orders. Understanding this, Noah turned his head slightly and said to the group of young men and women, "You guys wait for orders first." The group of young men and women were slightly startled at first, but when they noticed the bodyguards and maids on both sides, they immediately understood and nodded in unison. However, except for Julie, there was still a trace of stiffness on everyone's face, as if they were still very nervous. Seeing this, Noah smiled. "Don't be nervous. In such an occasion, no one will communicate with bodyguards and maids. Bodyguards and maids don't dare to be sneaky in such a formal occasion. They will abide by the rules. You just stay there like those people. Don't talk. You just need to adapt to the situation." After saying this, Noah waved his hand and walked into the venue. His carefree attitude eased the tension in the hearts of the group of young men and women. "Amazing," Ye said with admiration. "He's just like a real celebrity. He's not nervous at all." "Undoubtedly, this is his first mission," Ivanli exclaimed. "That guy really does everything almost perfectly. Could it be that there's nothing he can't do? After all, double-tripping blades is a true young mistress. It's only natural that she would be affected." Orange Bar nodded his head in admiration and said in a low voice, "We'll do what Noah said. Just wait on the side and don't talk to anyone. This way, we won't expose our identities." Hearing this, the group of young women nodded. Under the lead of Orange Bar, who was the head maid in name, Ivanli held Julie's hand, who was looking around curiously. Together with Ya, they walked towards the group of maids on the right. Totoro and Oe Totoro had been watching Noah. When they saw Noah enter the venue with ease as if it was a matter of course, they looked at each other. Totoro and Oe Totoro looked at each other. Totoro and Oe Totoro looked at each other. Then, the two of them silently walked towards the group of bodyguards on the left and joined the group. Noah had participated in many occasions where all kinds of celebrities gathered together since he had lived in both worlds. Although his identity in the previous two worlds was special, he didn't interact with all kinds of people like a real celebrity. However, even if he hadn't eaten pork, how could he not have seen pigs run? Therefore, Noah was very comfortable in this kind of situation. After casually dealing with a few people who came over with wine glasses to make friends, Noah began to really look around the venue. Needless to say, Noah didn't know the people here. The only one he really knew was a young woman in the center of a lively circle in front of the venue. She was wearing a bright and gorgeous red dress. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on her. She stole the hearts and gazes of many people of the opposite sex and the same sex. She had a confident smile on her face as usual. She was surrounded by a strong sense of presence and charm. She was so gorgeous that she couldn't be more eye-catching. Her dazzling blonde hair was fixed to the left side of her head with a red hair band. It hung down like a ponytail. The young woman was surrounded by a circle of famous men and women. Her every move exuded a terrifying charm. She was like the center of the world, extremely dazzling. I believe that 90% of the people here, especially those young men, would be conquered by such a beautiful girl with a strong background, temperament, and strong temperament. They would unconsciously join that circle in an attempt to get a smile from the goddess, right? Not to mention, the young woman could basically be considered as the owner of today's and tomorrow's appreciation meeting. Looking at the young woman who gathered in the circle of famous men and women, chatting with a smile on her face while her eyes vaguely swept around as if she was looking for something, Noah shook his head with a smile. At this time, a voice sounded beside Noah. "You want to join that circle, right?" Following such a voice, a man wearing a noble tuxedo and holding a glass of red wine came to Noah's side and raised his glass to Noah in a friendly manner. "Let me introduce myself, I'm Bliss, from England. Just call me Noah." Noah also raised the glass full of red wine in his hand and clinked glasses with the man named Bliss. They both took a sip and got to know each other. In fact, with Noah's age, he was still not allowed to drink in this country. However, in countries like England, people usually started to drink when they reached Noah's age. Therefore, in such an occasion, except for the real brats, everyone would more or less drink a little due to their status. Although Noah didn't know much about drinking, he could be considered to have done as the Romans did. After getting to know each other, Bliss turned his gaze to the most lively circle at the front. He looked at the young woman in the center of the circle who was surrounded by people and said with envy, "That young lady is the daughter of the president of the very famous burritos company in our country. Every famous person in England knows her. Her status is not ordinary, and she's so beautiful. Generally, people without status wouldn't dare to go over even if they wanted to." Hearing this, Noah was a little surprised. Although he already knew that Lilith was a real young lady, Lilith seemed to be more famous than Noah thought, and her status was also more noble than he imagined. After all, everyone here was a celebrity. Even a celebrity said that people without status shouldn't go over there. It was imaginable how noble Lilith's status was. If you can talk to that young lady, it's also good. If you can make friends with that young lady, you can't earn more. And if you can win the heart of that young lady, I believe that as long as you are a man, you will be so happy that you want to die. Bliss sighed. Now, the people around that young lady are all from noble families. If you can't compare with them, then don't go over, or you will be a joke. Hearing this, Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Bliss thought that Noah wanted to win Lilith's favor like those people around Lilith, so he came over to warn him. If Bliss knew that the goddess in his heart was sleeping on the same bed as the person beside him every day, and they were even taking off their clothes, how wonderful would his expression be? Just as Noah was about to say something to Bliss, a voice rang in his head. "Sure enough, you are also here." Undoubtedly, the content of the voice was polite, but the tone was full of arrogance and indifference. The very pretentious voice made Noah's eyes narrow, and he turned his head and looked behind him. What entered Noah's eyes was a white boy with a smile on his face and cold eyes. Chapter 260. Long time no see. Let's talk about this first. Not long ago, they were defeated by Noah's hands. The self-proclaimed God's Destroyer troop K was not wearing the steel suit that they saw last time. Instead, he was wearing an ordinary suit with a tie. Looking at Noah standing in front of him, K had a smile on his face, but his cold eyes were staring at Noah. He said to Noah, "It's my honor to see you again so soon, Noah Doria." Noah, who turned around, gradually restrained his expression under K's cold eyes and fake smile. Why did K appear here? This question was not important. Ever since he knew that K was released by the 99th lunar night, Noah felt that K would appear in front of him again sooner or later. Therefore, although he was a bit surprised that K would appear in front of him at this time and place, Noah was not surprised and only smiled faintly. "Is that so? But I don't want to see you at all. You're still the same as before." K smiled indifferently. "You don't hold back at all when you speak." As expected of that young lady's partner. Saying this, K's gaze vaguely glanced in Lilith's direction, making Bliss, who was on the side, ask Noah in a daze. "That, your friend?" "No." Noah shook his head. "We can't be considered friends." "Indeed, we can't be considered friends." K smiled at Bliss in a friendly manner. "You should be considered an opponent, right?" "Opponent?" Noah was a bit sarcastic. Only those who are evenly matched can be considered an opponent, right? Can you be considered my opponent? What he meant was that Kay did not have the qualifications to be his opponent. Regarding this, Kay still smiled indifferently, but the air around him became a bit colder, making Bliss shiver. For Bliss, who lived an ordinary life like a rich family's child, it was impossible for him to know the reason why the air around him suddenly became cold. This was because Bliss couldn't sense the source of the chilling aura emanating from Kay's body-killing intent. Of course, just because Bliss couldn't feel the killing intent didn't mean that he couldn't feel the bad atmosphere between Noah and Kay. At that moment, Bliss pretended to laugh freely and raised the cup in his hand. Since the two of you are old acquaintances, then I won't disturb the two of you. See you at the ball tonight. Take care. Noah and Kay also raised their glasses at Bliss and watched him leave. After Bliss's departure, the atmosphere around Noah and Kay became even worse. However, in this terrible atmosphere, Kay retracted his murderous aura and bowed pretentiously to Noah. Please allow me to introduce someone to you. While saying this, Kay moved his body to the side, allowing Noah's gaze to pass through his original position and look behind him. There was a thin old man in his 70s wearing a white coat. It was unknown whether he was a doctor or a scholar, but he was walking towards them step by step with a cane. The old man's hair was so white that it was impossible to see his original hair color. However, from the other party's blue eyes and high nose, hidden behind the glasses that resembled reading glasses, the other party should also be a Westerner. Looking at the Westerner old man slowly walking in front of him, Noah stared at him for a while. When the old man was in front of him, Noah smiled. His smile was full of evil intentions. Equipment Smith? The old man was stunned. Even Kay was stunned. It was obvious that he didn't expect Noah to suddenly say this name. Upon seeing their reactions, Noah confirmed his guess and curled his lips into a smile. Looks like I guessed right. Guessed? The old man recovered from his shock. He narrowed his eyes and laughed out loud. In the beginning, when Kay reported that the person who defeated him and the 10-man team of God's Destruction Team was a student, I was still curious as to what kind of person he was. So that's how it is, that's how it is. You are even more outstanding than I thought. You can call me Edward. The old man who called himself Edward, but in reality, he was the same as the 99th lunar night. He developed a method that allowed people to obtain power that surpassed humans. The power of the God Destroyer team has been demonstrated a few days ago. It was created by strengthening the body with the battle suit known as the equipment steel. What do you think? It's not bad compared to you surpassers, right? Hearing this, Noah frowned. In terms of strength alone, the God's Destroyer squad that was equipped with the steel suit was indeed not weak. At least, from the standard of surpassers, the God Destroyer team that could match the level 2 surpassers did have a considerable amount of power. But, what does this have to do with me? Noah spread out his hands. I'm just a student. Even if I admit that the God Destroyer team is not inferior to a normal surpasser, what's the use? Whether you're a student or not, you're still a surpasser. As an individual with the power of surpassers, you're the most suitable person to evaluate my equipment steel. Edward seemed to be eager for recognition as he spoke to Noah enthusiastically. Moreover, you seem to be a very special individual. You are qualified to comment on my pretending to be steel. Although he said this, his face was full of enthusiasm, but Edward's words of individual had already exposed his inner thoughts. Obviously, to Edward, Noah Doria was only an individual that he was interested in. Rather than saying that Edward treated Noah as a target for evaluation, it was more accurate to say that he treated Noah as a reference to compare with his own invention. If that's the case, then let me tell you my opinion. Noah suddenly smiled and said this. Something that can only match a group of level 2 students, no matter how you look at it, it can't be considered good, right? Edward's smile froze, but after a while, he recovered and laughed. Indeed, it's just a half-finished product that hasn't been adjusted. Moreover, although the ones wearing it are trained soldiers, they're still just normal humans. Normal humans? Noah looked straight at Edward. What do you mean by that? My meaning is very simple. Edward chuckled, but his eyes behind his glasses were fixed on Noah. There was a trace of fanaticism in his eyes. Do you want to come to my side? The surrounding air became slightly heavy, from the original vile atmosphere to somewhat heavy. Noah held the glass, sipped the red wine, and said casually, "You want to rope me in? I want to see what level of power you can obtain after wearing the armored steel." Edward's tone was somewhat excited. "A group of normal soldiers wearing my armored steel can obtain power similar to a surpasser. If you, as a surpasser, were to wear the armored steel, under the double enhancement of the daybreak star pattern, and armored steel, how high would your strength be?" Hearing this, Noah's heart was slightly moved, but after thinking about it, he calmed down. Even the daybreak star pattern, that could strengthen the human body and spirit, could not give him any more power. How much power would the armored steel, which could only strengthen the body, give him? Originally, Noah's body was already strong to the point that the daybreak star pattern could not strengthen it much. He believed that even if he changed to armored steel, it would still be the same. With this thought, Noah glanced at Edward. "Sorry, I'm not interested. Your will is quite firm. As a student, you can actually not be tempted by power." The excitement on Edward's face disappeared little by little, and he looked at Noah with deep meaning. "However, I haven't given up on the idea of combining a surpasser and a god's destroyer." Leaving this sentence, Edward took the silent K and left. Looking at the back of the two people, Noah curled his lips, but his heart was in deep thought. Chapter 261. The appraisal of the mysterious, shattered feather, held by the Dawn organization, would be officially held tomorrow. Today, in addition to the ball in the evening, the main purpose was to let the celebrities from various countries who came to participate in the appraisal to gather together. 99 lunar nights would appear and say one or two opening remarks as a welcome. Then, 99 lunar nights would let the celebrities who came to participate in the appraisal return to their prearranged rooms to rest. At this time, Noah was in a luxurious suite in the hotel. However, this room was not Noah's, but Lilith's. Under Sarah's unwilling support, Noah sneaked into Lilith's room in order to not expose his identity. He told Lilith about his encounter with Equipment Smith and Kay at the venue. They really came? Lilith, who was still wearing a brightly colored dress and had changed her hairstyle, sat on the edge of the bed with the aura of a noble lady. Her face showed an expression that said it was expected. Blaze Diabolica, special, and the extremely mysterious shattered feather. With so many elements that could move that person, it would be strange if they didn't come. I see. Noah looked at Lilith in a daze. She did not show any signs of surprise. After a while, he sighed. Did you already know that they would come? In fact, if he thought about it carefully, it was natural that Lilith would not be surprised by Edward and K's appearance. After all, Edward and K's appearance was completely predictable. According to some information revealed by K, when he wanted to kidnap Lilith, the person standing behind Edward, who developed Equipment Smith, had a motive for wanting to obtain 99 lunar nights and Lilith. K said that he kidnapped Lilith mainly because the security around 99 lunar nights was too tight. It was not easy to obtain, so he made a move on Lilith in an attempt to negotiate with the Dawn organization through Lilith. Now that he thought about it, Noah felt that the so-called negotiation and the purpose of wanting to obtain 99 lunar nights should be for the Dawn Star rune. To be more precise, it should be to obtain the surpasser. This was because Edward had said that he wanted to combine the Transcendents and the God Destroyers. Thus, Edward and Kay came to this appreciation party. Needless to say, 99 lunar nights and Lilith were here, and Shattered Feather was a mysterious item that even the Dawn organization could not decipher. Regardless of whether it was to achieve his goal or to satisfy his curiosity as a researcher, Edward would still come. After all, the security around the 99 lunar nights would definitely not be as tight as it was in the academy. More or less, he would be able to find an opportunity to make a move. Who the hell is that old guy? Noah looked at Lilith. If Blaze Diabolica refers to 99 knights who researched the daybreak star pattern and created the surpasser, and Equipment Smith refers to Edward who developed the steel installation and created the God's Destroyer, then are there other people who are researching the power that surpasses humans? Lilith fell silent. Seeing Lilith's reaction, Noah knew that he had hit the nail on the head. Ever since Kay had appeared with the God's Destroyer team, Noah had been suspecting that since there were God's Destroyer existences that surpassed humans, then were there other people in this world who were researching the same power? The facts proved that Noah's guess was indeed accurate. At that moment, Noah did not say anything more. He just looked at Lilith and waited for Lilith's answer. After a period of stifling silence, Lilith spoke up after an unknown amount of time. Equipment Smith, real name Edward Walker, is a research expert who is proficient in mechanical engineering. In addition to being good at developing engines and propulsion systems, he is also dedicated to the development of artificial muscles. Miss. On the side, Sarah, who had been silent, suddenly became anxious. That is the secret of the Dawn organization. So, I won't say it a second time. Lilith casually dropped this sentence, making Sarah speechless. She continued to speak as if nothing had happened. Edward was originally the second in command of the Dawn organization's development bureau. This sentence made Noah somewhat stunned. Edward, who wanted to kidnap the 99th lunar night and kidnap Lilith to negotiate with the Dawn organization in an attempt to obtain the Dawn star pattern, was the second in command of the Dawn organization's development bureau. When he was still in the Dawn organization, Edward strongly advocated the development of external skeletal attire that subverted the knowledge of the past, but he could not get the understanding and recognition of those around him. Lilith picked up a cup of milk tea and drank it little by little. The reason is very simple. Because the concept proposed by Edward is fundamentally different from the Dawn organization's research on the power of the soul. How could it be understood and recognized by others? Noah nodded. The final product of Edward's research on external skeletal attire, equipment steel. It was like a piece of equipment, worn on the body, and through the strengthening of the equipment, it would increase the strength of the person. Although the Dawn star pattern was a nanomachine, it could also be regarded as a piece of equipment worn on the body. However, its root was to draw out the power of the soul, so that the owner's body, spirit, and other aspects could be improved. The two, one focused on external, one focused on internal, and there was no place for them to meet. So, 12 years ago, Edward suddenly disappeared, and since then, his whereabouts have been unknown. Lilith took a sip of milk tea and continued. The second in command of the organization disappeared, and even the information that was still in research and had already been developed were all deleted by him. This caused a lot of chaos in the Dawn organization at that time, and it also brought a lot of trouble. But now, it seems that the trouble this old man brought was bigger than expected. Noah also laughed bitterly. Because of the difference in ideology, they parted ways. Noah had seen this kind of situation many times in the world of the Dark Bullet. Not to mention other things, Xing Tianzi and Chiwu Zhongshuan were fundamentally different in ideology, which caused the two people to be destined to walk two paths that were absolutely impossible to cross, and also impossible to walk together. Indeed, as you said, in addition to the Surpassers and God's Destroyer, there are other existences in this world that can surpass human beings. Lilith put down the cup of milk tea in her hand and looked directly at Noah. Because, in addition to the Blaze Diabolica, who created the Surpassers, and the Equipment Smith, who created the God's Destroyer, in this world, there are 5 other people who are researching the power that surpasses human beings. 7 luminaries, reign. Lilith spat out this unknown title. That is the title of the researchers with the Absolute Duo as the core. Blaze Diabolica and Equipment Smith are 2 of them. After that, Lilith took a deep breath and sighed again. Now, the person who is about to bring us trouble is such a person. Noah, who quietly slipped out of Lilith's room, walked in the corridor back to his room and fell into deep thought. 7 luminaries, rain. I'm afraid that's the real source of the mystery that brought unknown to this world. Knowing this, Noah's last doubts about this world dissipated. To be honest, Noah was quite interested in what kind of power the other members of the 7 luminaries, rain, possessed that could surpass human beings. However, as members of the 7 luminaries, rain, the power that the 99 lunar knights and Edward had mastered could not bring him any improvement, then presumably, the other members of the 7 luminaries, rain, should be the same, right? Besides, Noah did not have time to continue to explore the power of the other 7 luminaries, rain. Turning his head, looking out the window, looking at the gradually darkening sky, Noah whispered softly. After all, after getting the world fragment, I have to leave. Chapter 262. Walla Dash. The sound of water echoed in the quiet space filled with mist. In the spacious bathtub, Julie's long silver hair stuck to her smooth skin. Her body was soaking in the water. She squinted her eyes, and her emotionless delicate face entered an extremely relaxed state. She even exhaled contentedly. So comfortable, isn't it? Ivan leaned against the side of the bathtub. Even under the cover of the mist and ripples, his beautiful figure still faintly showed his beautiful side. He looked at Julie, who had a comfortable expression on her face, and narrowed his eyes in pleasure. As expected of the luxurious hotel chosen by the Dawn organization. It's unfair that such a large bathtub is only used by those celebrities. After being led to the prearranged room by the attendants would inform the celebrities who came to participate in the appreciation party of the existence of the bathtub. As the hotel's most famous bathtub, the celebrities who came to participate in the appreciation party today and tomorrow had the opportunity to enjoy themselves in this large bathtub. Of course, it was only limited to those with noble status. As for the maids, Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, Enya, the 4 of them were not allowed to enter the bathtub. Therefore, the group of girls all snuck in. Under Ivanli's instigation. Including Tachibana Enya. Tachibana tied her long black hair into a ponytail and soaked in the bathtub, not to be outdone, showing off her delicate body that was not inferior to Ivanli's. Her white skin was covered with water droplets, and half of her body was submerged in the water. She couldn't help but let out a satisfied sound. However, very quickly, Tachibana's face was filled with worry. But, is it okay if we just come in? Yes. Ya hugged her body, curled up, and stayed in the corner of the bathtub. She said uneasily. Isn't it only the celebrities who can come in? Can't we come in? Don't worry, don't worry. Ivanli smiled at Tachibana Enya. Before coming, I already asked the attendants. During this time, the celebrities are in their rooms choosing the dresses they need for the ball tonight. At least, no one will come here for at least an hour. The hair on Julie's head shook. Can we monopolize this bathtub? That's right, that's right. Ivan nodded and said regretfully. Although it's only an hour. I think it's better for us to get out of here as soon as possible. Orange Bar, who was the most composed, shook his head. Maybe there will be maids and bodyguards who sneak in like us. This. Ivan didn't seem to have thought of this, and he began to stammer. There shouldn't be, right? You're not even sure yourself, are you? Orange Bar glared at Ivanli and grew nervous. It can't be that a boy will suddenly barge in, right? As soon as he said this, the entire bath fell into an indescribable silence. Because this was entirely possible. There was only one luxurious bath in the entire hotel. Therefore, the hotel staff would specify which time period was for the men to use and which time was for the women to use. The time period where Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and Yawerin had not been arranged. If there was any arrangement, it would be the not available time period. If there was someone like Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and who wanted to sneak in to enjoy themselves, it was entirely possible that it was a boy. At this moment, the group of 4 girls began to feel uneasy. We should hurry up, Ivanli said with a smile. We still have work to do later. Yeah, Julie was the first to nod. Looking at her blushing face, she was definitely worried that her delicate body would be seen by the opposite sex. That's right. Tachibana immediately rubbed her body with her face flushed red, as if a boy would barge in if she washed too slowly. Everyone, hurry up. Hurry up. Ye didn't say anything, and only nodded vigorously. In order to wash her body, Ye finally let go of the hands that had been protecting her body. As soon as she let go, Yago, who had the best figure among the girls, was seen by all of the girls. Looking at Swago, who was hiding in the corner, Ivanli, Julie, and Tachibana all fell silent. Ye's face was completely red, and she hurriedly extended her hands to protect her body again. She pressed her body into the water, and even half of her face was soaked in the water, blowing bubbles. The silence lasted for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, Julie, who was staring at Ye's chest with her deep red eyes, said innocently, "Yes are really big, they look fine." Jolie-chan. Ye blushed and bashfully soaked her face in the water. Ivanli and Tachibana looked at each other, and finally put on a fake smile. "Let's hurry up and wash." "Yeah, hurry up and wash." With that said, Ivan and Tachibana began to wash their bodies stiffly. At this moment, a voice sounded outside the bathtub. "This is the bathtub that the waiter mentioned, right?" The group of girls, including Julie, all sucked in a cold breath. After returning to the room, Noah didn't see Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and Ye, which made Noah a bit distressed. Ninefold Turyu and Oki Hokusaki, who disguised themselves as bodyguards, needed to patrol the surrounding area with the other celebrities' bodyguards. And the group of girls who came with Noah as maids needed to help their nominal master, namely Noah, pick out the costumes for the evening ball. However, Noah only left for a while to go to Lilith's room, and when he returned, the girls were gone. Were they ordered to take care of the tomb guards in the Dawn organization at the last minute? Noah, who couldn't choose a costume and didn't believe in his own eyes, could only walk out of the room gloomily. "Forget it, I'll go take a bath first." The waiters were full of praise for the hotel's bathtub. Since the girls weren't there, Noah simply went to enjoy the big bathtub, which was also good. Presumably, as long as he told the waiters in the hotel would open the unoccupied bathtub for Noah alone. This was the so-called benefit of being a celebrity. Being able to enjoy privileges that ordinary people didn't have. Even if one person used the bathtub, it would be too big. And indeed, Noah obtained the right to use the bathtub just by telling the waiters. Looking at the huge space in front of him that seemed to be built with marble, and the endless hot water flowing from the wolf-shaped carvings carved on the pillars, filling the whole space with steam, Noah's mood suddenly became better. Without hesitation, Noah quickly took off his clothes and soaked in the bathtub. The temperature of the water wasn't high, and it was controlled just right, so Noah's cold skin quickly warmed up. Phew. Soaking in the bathtub, Noah breathed a sigh of relief, closed his eyes, and his heart became active. The shattered feather, defined by the Dawn organization. That was the purpose of Noah coming to this world. As long as he obtained the world fragment named Shattered Feather, Noah's fundamental purpose of coming to this world would be achieved. Now, the world fragment was in this hotel that was as big as a building. And in order to not have a conflict with Ivan, Julie, Lilith, Tachiba, and Ye, who stood on the side of the Dawn organization, Noah must obtain the world fragment without exposing his identity. Unfortunately, this world probably wouldn't give Noah any more hints regarding the world fragment. Because the world had no way to interfere with the world. At this time when Noah was closest to the world fragment, the world had no way to give Noah any hints. Therefore, Noah had to find the location of the world fragment by himself. As he thought about it, Noah came to a decision. Let's try to find it in the hotel tonight. After making such a decision, Noah began to plan for the night's action. Pop! Suddenly, beside the bathtub, a somewhat loud sound of water echoed. Noah, who was thinking about the action at night, froze, frowned, turned his head, and looked in the direction of the sound. Chapter 263. Bo 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 bo. Noah turned his gaze to the source of the sound and saw that behind a thick stone pillar, the water surface was bubbling with a loud, splash sound. Bubbling? Noah's face showed a suspicious look. Is the bathtub broken? If Noah had unleashed his superb sensing ability, he definitely wouldn't have thought so. Unfortunately, under the situation where he didn't sense any danger, hostility, or abnormality, Noah wouldn't activate his sensing ability immediately. It was also because he didn't sense any danger, hostility, or abnormality that Noah suspected that the bathtub was broken. Thus, Noah stood up from the bathtub and walked over. Because of the shadow near the pillar, Noah couldn't see very clearly. However, the water behind the pillar was bubbling more and more intensely. Noah could still see it clearly. Noah, who thought that the bathtub was broken, stretched out his hand towards the bubbling water, and reached into the water, trying to touch the broken part. Pew! In the next second, Noah's palm seemed to have grabbed something. Bo 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 bo. In an instant, the bubbles on the water became more lively. What is this? Noah was slightly stunned. The water in front of Noah also kept bubbling, and it became more and more intense. At this time, Noah's expression began to stiffen, and his face also broke out in a cold sweat. Voila! Just at the moment when Noah woke up, under the crazily bubbling water in front of him, two heads finally popped out. Looking at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him and the scene that was imprinted in his eyes, Noah was petrified. In front of Noah, Ivania and Enya, whose hair was tied up, were completely naked. Their pretty faces were flushed, and while they were gasping for fresh air, their eyes and faces gradually revealed an expression of shame and anger. The air froze. Still not stopping. Yeah. Wah 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 wah. In the huge bathtub, Ivania's shameful screams and Yenya's extremely shy screams sounded at the same time. By the way, the weird screams came from Orange Bar, who popped out of the water behind Ivania and Yenya. What a pervert. Big pervert. Don't you have the most basic sense of shame as a human? In a luxurious room in the hotel, Ivania and Orange Bar, who were wearing maid uniforms again, glared at Noah, who was sitting on the sofa. Their faces were full of indignation, and spat out insults without offensive power or novelty, which made Noah's face was full of helplessness, and his face was full of bitterness. Julie and Yenya were both changed faces, but they was not as indignant as Ivania and Orange. Julie's pretty face was slightly flushed. Clearly, even though she often slept naked next to Noah like Lilith, it didn't mean that this emotionless girl wasn't shy. After Yenya came back from the bathroom, she used her hands to cover her body that couldn't be completely covered. Tears hung from the corners of her eyes, and her pretty face was completely red. From time to time, she would secretly peek at Noah, and the more she peeked, the redder her face became. Looking at Ivania and Orange Bar, who were angrily lecturing him, Noah could only raise his hands in surrender. Didn't I say that I didn't do it on purpose? Even if you didn't do it on purpose, it's a fact that you saw our bodies. Orange Bar, who wasn't good at dealing with this kind of thing between the opposite sex, kept blushing, and was even a little flustered. No matter what. You have to be careful. I'm starting to wonder if you did it on purpose. Ivania poked Noah's cheek and said. Speaking of which, when we first entered the school and formed the temporary double-tripping blade, you saw my body naked in the dorm. You even occupied the right to sleep with my Julie and became the official double-tripping blade with a super beautiful girl like Lilith, and we slept together every night. That's too much. What? Orange Bar turned pale with fright and shouted at Noah. You're shameless. Wait. Noah widened his eyes and said to Ivania in shock. Forget about the first part, but the later part with Lilith doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right? What do you mean it doesn't have anything to do with me? Ivania first stuck out his tongue and then said in a serious tone. As a friend, I can't watch you go down a path of no return. Then I'm sorry, I still have some self-control in this aspect. Noah's mouth twitched, and he narrowed his eyes and looked at Ivania in annoyance. Speaking of which, on the night when we first entered the school, in the dorm, if you didn't run out of the bathroom by yourself and didn't grab Julie, then I wouldn't have seen everything, right? Ivania was speechless. Noah looked at Julie, Orange Bar, and Yas separately, and his tone became even more annoyed. This time, it seems like you all sneaked into the big bathtub and became like that, right? This time, even Julie, Orange Bar, and you were speechless. Strictly speaking, they were taken advantage of and seen naked. It could only be said that Ivania, Julie, Orange Bar, and you deserved it. After all, not only did the four of them sneak into the bathtub, but after hearing Noah's voice, they actually foolishly chose to hide in the water. As a result, the four of them were seen naked by Noah, and Ivania and Ya's breasts were played with. At that time, if the four of them made a slight noise, Noah would still be outside the bathtub and wouldn't have gone in, and the rest wouldn't have happened. Of course, it couldn't be said that Noah wasn't wrong. No, it should be said that Noah was also at fault. After all, Noah had a sensing ability that was almost like a radar, able to scan everything within a very wide range. Although this sensing ability couldn't allow Noah to see everything clearly within the range of the sensing ability, it could almost detect the shapes and auras of all kinds of existences. For example, if there was a rock within the range of the sensing ability would give Noah feedback of the rock's outline and information. Even if there was no way to see it, Noah would still know what it was. Another example was if a person appeared within Noah's sensing range, Noah would be able to detect the other party's aura, presence, and even location. This function was indeed like a radar scanning. Even if he couldn't know the specific appearance, he could roughly know the other party's location and outline, and determine what the existence was. Therefore, if Noah could activate his sensing ability when he saw the bubbles and detect the auras of the group of girls, he could have avoided everything on the spot. However, regarding the sensing ability, not to mention the fact that the girls didn't know about it, even if they knew, they couldn't blame Noah. Therefore, it was indeed a self-inflicted wound. No matter what, you're the one who's taking advantage of me. Ivanli could only use the girl's unreasonable manner. You have to forget everything that happened in the bathtub. After being reminded by Ivanli, Noah reflexively recalled the beautiful scene he saw in the bathtub. Ivanli's slender and beautiful body that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Julie's tender and fair body. Orange Bar was full of charm, with a curvaceous figure. As well as Ya's pair of perfect figures that no one could ignore. Then, Noah discovered it. He had a good relationship with himself and had always been more active around him. He had actually seen the bodies of Ivanli, Julie, Lilith, Orange Bar, and Ya. When he was young, he had also seen the bodies of Mira and Lisanna. In another world, he had also seen Muging's delicate body. Could it be that he had another kind of physique that was destined to see the bodies of the opposite sex that he had a good relationship with? Unfortunately, Elusha had a good relationship with him, and the Holy Son of Heaven had even revealed his admiration for him. These two girls, why hadn't he seen their bodies? At the same time that this thought appeared in his mind, Noah didn't know what he was feeling right now. Regret? Speechlessness? Or was it both? Chapter 264. Even at night, the hotel was still brightly lit. However, this brightly lit situation did not occur on the top floors of the hotel. This was because on one of the floors, the shattered feather that was going to appear in tomorrow's auction was placed there. Da. In the dimly lit floor, every corridor was filled with the echoes of footsteps. Those were the footsteps of the surpassers, who were wearing the special guard uniform of the Mausoleum Guardians of the Dawn organization's Way-In unit, patrolling the area. In the dim corridors that looked like giant beasts, almost every corridor was patrolled by the Guardians of the Dawn organization. After graduating from the academy, all of them were rank 3 surpassers. Moreover, there would definitely be rank 4 surpassers. However, rank 4 surpassers were different from rank 3 surpassers. The combat strength of a level 4 warrior who had unlocked the true power of Blaze was not something a level 3 warrior could compare to. Therefore, among the Tomb Guardians who were at least rank 3 surpassers, rank 4 surpassers were usually dispatched as team leaders and would not participate in the patrols. In a dark corner of a dimly lit corridor, Noah's back was against the wall. He tilted his head and calmly observed the patrolling teams. His deep black pupils slightly flickered. At this time, Noah was wearing a deep black shirt and trousers. On the outside, he was also wearing a black hooded jacket. The hood of the jacket was pulled up and placed on his head, covering everything above his nose. He perfectly blended in with the surrounding darkness. It was believed that even if Ivanli, Julie, Lilith, and other girls who were very familiar with Noah were here, they would not be able to recognize Noah. Not to mention, the group of girls were not here, they were at the ball. In order to avoid spending time with the group of girls, Noah purposely chose this time when the ball was about to start. He found an excuse to escape the ball at night and sneak into the upper floor of the hotel. Because he still needed to take care of the Tomb Guardians, Ivanli, Julie, Tachibana, and Nya were all in the ballroom. Kyuj and Oki were also the same. After successfully escaping, Noah changed into a set of clothes that would allow him to easily hide his identity and sneak into the upper floor of the hotel. The security here was extremely tight. In addition to the Tomb Guardians who were wearing police uniforms and patrolling the corridors, Noah could also occasionally rely on his sensing ability to detect some hidden defensive systems in the corridors that could not be seen with the naked eye. For example, pinhole surveillance cameras. Another example was the red lines that could only be seen by Noah's sensing ability. Infrared rays? Noah closed his eyes as he sensed the corridors. He sneered in his heart. Unfortunately, this will make it easier for me to find them. Noah did not doubt that the Dawn organization had the ability to install infrared rays in a hotel. However, it was impossible for the Dawn organization to fill every place with infrared rays. Otherwise, there would be no need for patrols. Therefore, the infrared rays played the role of a road sign. After all, the infrared rays must be placed on the correct path to the broken feather. Then, the words of the two patrolling Tomb Guardians confirmed Noah's guess. It's really boring, why are we assigned to patrol the periphery? There's nothing we can do about it. Who told us to not be strong enough? Look at those rank 4 seniors. They can be on guard inside the infrared rays, and they only need to guard one place. They don't need to be like us, going around in circles. Yeah, it would be great if we could be promoted to rank 4, become a captain, give orders, and don't even need to patrol and guard. It's not that easy. Rank 4 has a lot of mental requirements, but the physical requirements are relatively small. I don't even know how to train my mental strength. That's right. Noah, who was hiding in the corner, easily heard these words. He looked at the direction where the infrared rays were more concentrated. This is just the periphery, the closer to the infrared rays, the closer to the broken feather. However, the closer I get to the location of the shattered feather, the tighter the security will be, and the Tomb Guardians there will definitely be stronger as well. There might even be level 4 or level V. Even if I can rely on my sensing ability to avoid the infrared rays, I still have to be careful not to be discovered. Immediately, Noah sneaked into the darkness, and when the patrolling Tomb Guardians turned the corner, his figure suddenly flew out. Whoosh! Like a ghostly shadow, Noah instantly flashed into the dim corridor. As if he had a pair of eyes in the sky, he nimbly twisted his body a few times, avoiding the infrared rays one by one, and swept into the infrared rays. The whole process took less than a second. The patrolling Tomb Guardians didn't notice at all. In this way, Noah specially drilled into the places with infrared rays. While turning a blind eye to all the infrared rays, he also paid attention to the pinhole cameras hidden in places that others could not see. As Noah moved forward, the infrared rays became more and more concentrated, the patrolling personnel also increased, and the security became more and more strict. A burst of rhythmic footsteps came. One by one, the Tomb Guardians with stern eyes patrolled back and forth in the corridor. With his sensing ability, Noah easily judged the strength of these tomb guardians from their aura. Although they are still rank 3, these are the elites of rank 3. The rank 3 patrolling the periphery is much weaker than them. Noah thought. This also proves that I'm getting closer and closer to the world fragment. With his sensing ability, no one's position could be hidden from Noah. Therefore, Noah was able to accurately choose a clever place to hide, and easily avoid the sight of the patrolling tomb guardians. Soon, Noah came to a corner. Looking through the wall, Noah could clearly see what was in front of him. At the end of the corridor, there was a door. On both sides of the door, 2 tomb guardians stood there like guards, not moving at all. It's there. Noah's eyes lit up while hiding in the corner. The world fragment must be there. But, how do I get there? Noah was distressed. Those 2 tomb protectors are guarding the entrance. How can I sneak in? Don't tell me that I have to resort to violence. This was also an option. He didn't need to kill the tomb guardians guarding the world fragment. As long as he stunned them or shot them with his revolver, it would be fine. In any case, if the blaze didn't have killing intent, it wouldn't cause any physical harm. It would only cause a mental and spiritual impact, so Noah didn't need to be afraid. With this thought in mind, Noah deliberately suppressed the light and flames of the star pattern that appeared when the blaze materialized his revolver. This technique of eliminating the phenomenon caused by the materialization of blaze, was something that Noah had figured out while he was secretly training his limit ability so that he wouldn't be like the last time when he was facing the zucchini hare, where he couldn't unseal the power of limit in time at the critical moment. Originally, this technique was useless, but who knew that it would come in handy at this time? After playing with the gun for a while, Noah raised the revolver in his hand and used his jacket to cover the body of the gun in his hand. Bang bang. Ugh. Ah. After the 2 gunshots were muffled by the jackets, 2 muffled sounds could be heard. Bang. In the sound of the 2 tomb guardians falling to the ground, one after the other, they were paralyzed on the ground. It was likely that they wouldn't wake up for at least 1 or 2 hours. Almost at the same time, Noah walked out of the corner, and in a flash, he arrived at the door. Pa! With a light sound, the door opened and closed, and Noah entered the door. Chapter 265. This was an extremely spacious room. It was like a research facility. The ground was made of stone bricks that were as cold as steel. The walls were the same. Even the ground seemed to have electric wiring. From time to time, flashes of lightning would appear, giving people the illusion that they had entered a research facility. Noah activated his sensing ability and scanned the room. He found that there were no pinhole cameras or infrared rays. There were only glass cabinets with items placed in them. The glass cabinets were filled with valuable items that were worth collecting. Those were the items that were prepared to be gifted to the celebrities who came to participate in the appreciation convention. It would be too much to say that every item here was priceless, but it was not something that could be casually bought from a roadside stall. It was enough to enter the eyes of those celebrities. Therefore, if all the items here were to be sold, then it would definitely be enough for a normal person to spend the rest of their life lavishly. It was believed that in this country, only the Dawn organization, which was equivalent to the country's underground organization, had the ability to spend such a large amount of money and extravagantly give away the items here. Unfortunately, Noah did not even look at these items that could be considered valuable, but as if his mind was enlightened, he raised his eyes and looked at the front. In the innermost part of the spacious room, there was a copper platform placed alone. On top of the copper platform, there was a square glass cabinet the size of a soccer ball placed on top of it. Inside the football-sized cube glass cabinet, a crystal ball lay quietly inside. Inside, there was a feather that seemed to have been cut off at the root, with only half of it remaining. The feather released a weak white light. Ding! Just as Noah raised his eyes and looked at the world fragment, the white light on the world fragment skyrocketed, as if it had sensed Noah's arrival. At the same time, it released a dazzling white light, and at the same time, it trembled and made a light crisp sound. Just like those feathers in the world fragment, the white light of the world fragment was filled with emotions that only Noah could feel. Joy. Feeling the emotions of the world fragment, Noah's calm heart also surged with a trace of excitement. For Noah, who was extremely adept at controlling his emotions, other than the world and the world fragment, there were very few factors that could so easily stir up his emotions. However, this was not a bad thing. Although he didn't know why, Noah only needed to know that these emotions came from the bottom of his heart, and that was enough. After suppressing the excitement in his heart, Noah took a deep breath and lifted his foot. Whoo! Just as Noah was about to step forward and collect the world fragment, a gust of wind suddenly sounded. A long whip-like shadow cut through the darkness of the vast room, slicing through the atmosphere. Against the howling wind, it viciously whipped towards Noah's direction. However, before the sound of the wind could be heard, Noah's sensing ability had already been triggered. The moment he stopped in his tracks, his figure was like a shadow as he retreated rapidly. Pung! The whip-like shadow heavily fell on the position where Noah was a second ago. With a muffled sound, it directly smashed the ground there. When Noah, who had retreated rapidly, saw the true face of the whip shadow, his eyes hidden under the hood congealed. Caw 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 caw. The cold blades that were connected together like the scales of a snake drew an arc in the air. Amidst a series of mechanical sounds, they combined together one after another and returned to the hands of the owner who held the hilt. That was a snake belly sword. The owner holding the snake belly sword was naturally Moonlit Glass Rabbit, who was wearing a mixture of a maid's uniform and a bunny girl's uniform. She wore rabbit ears on her head and had a sadistic smile on her face. Ha! I didn't think that there would be someone who could sneak into this place without alerting the tomb guardians. Standing on a counter and looking down at Noah, Eugene too laughed out loud. His laughter was extremely wild. Hey! Who are you? Noah didn't speak. He buried his face in the hood of the jacket he was wearing. With the cover of the surrounding darkness and the hood, he hid his true identity. Noah knew that in the place closest to the world fragment, the Dawn organization shouldn't really only arrange 2 guards at the door. There must be other precautions inside. However, Noah didn't expect that this precaution was actually Moonlit Glass Rabbit. Keep silent. Seeing Noah standing in the same place without making a sound and not running away because he was discovered, Moonlit Glass Rabbit raised her eyebrows and the corner of her mouth hooked up in an interesting arc. Well, it doesn't matter. After I take you down, I'll see enough for myself. After saying that, Moonlit Glass Rabbit's figure turned into a stream of light. Holding the snake belly sword in her hand, before she arrived in front of Noah, the snake belly sword in her hand blew up the air and heavily chopped towards Noah. With this chop, wherever the snake belly sword passed, the air seemed to be directly shattered and annihilated. The snake belly sword carried a huge amount of pressure and mercilessly fell towards Noah's body. Looking at the snake belly sword that suddenly chopped towards him as if it didn't want to take him down, but rather kill him, and the arrogant smile on Moonlit Glass Rabbit's face, Noah completely calmed down. Moonlit Glass Rabbit was a level V level surpasser. With the power of Moonlit Glass Rabbit's snake belly sword, a normal, level 4, even if it was a level 4, without 4 or 5 people attacking together, it was impossible for them to be Moonlit Glass Rabbit's opponent. However, Noah had already defeated Moonlit Glass Rabbit once when he was at level 1. Although he relied on the power of Annihilation Strike and Leap to win against Moonlit Glass Rabbit's carelessness, Noah was no longer the level 1 from before. Without releasing the power of Limit, Noah was a level 4 level surpasser. Now, even if it was a direct confrontation, Noah was not afraid of Moonlit Glass Rabbit at all. However, it was not to the point of fighting Moonlit Glass Rabbit empty-handed. If he wanted to defeat Moonlit Glass Rabbit cleanly, he either had to release the power of Limit or use the blaze. If he used the revolver, Noah's deliberately hidden identity would be exposed. Therefore, if he didn't want to expose his identity and wanted to retrieve the world fragment, the wisest thing to do was to release the power of limit. If Moonlit Glass Rabbit directly issued an alarm and called all the tomb protectors in the hotel over, Noah would definitely do so. However, when Noah used his sensing ability to scan the surroundings and found that Moonlit Glass Rabbit had no intention of calling anyone, Noah's mind suddenly became active. He wanted to test his own power. He wanted to test the power of his other blaze. Driven by this thought, Noah stretched out his hand and pressed it on his chest. When the bright star pattern appeared on Noah's chest, Moonlit Glass Rabbit's pupils suddenly shrank. Blaze! Amidst the heavy call, a pale blue flame burst out from Noah's body. In the next moment, within the blue flame, a completely black sword with white patterns on the sword fell into Noah's hand. Knight's sword. At the moment of imminent peril, the knight's sword and the snake belly sword were raised and slashed, each containing a ferocious force as they collided together. Clang! The sound of steel colliding with steel rang out. A burst of violent shockwaves swept out, blowing in all directions. Noah, who was holding the knight's sword, and Moonlit Glass Rabbit, who was holding the snake belly sword, were both pushed back by the force of the collision. Both of their feet fiercely stomped on the ground, and with a dang-dang sound, both of them were pushed back. After putting some distance between them, the two of them forcibly stopped their bodies at the same time and came to a standstill. Facing each other from a distance, Noah, whose face was covered by a hoodie, had a calm expression on his face. Moonlit Glass Rabbit, on the other hand, tightened his grip on the snake belly sword. The arrogant smile on his face disappeared as he stared at Noah with a gloomy expression. "Who are you?" Chapter 266. Who are you? Eugenie Rabbit, who no longer had her usual arrogance, gripped the snake belly sword tightly with a gloomy face. When she realized that the intruder, whose face was hidden under the hood, raised the knight's sword in his hand and pointed it at her without any intention of answering her question, Eugenie Rabbit's face turned even uglier. "When did a traitor like you appear in the Dawn organization?" "Yes. A traitor." Now, Noah was undoubtedly betraying the Dawn organization. Because only a surpasser could use the blaze. And only the Dawn organization could create a surpasser. As the result of the Dawn organization's research, now, a surpasser, who hid his identity, and a rank 4 surpasser, stood opposite her and tried to make a move on the Dawn organization's things. It was easy to imagine how bad Eugenie Rabbit's mood was. However, Eugenie Rabbit was also very confused. A rank 4 surpasser, who could release the true power of the blaze, betrayed her. She and the Dawn organization did not receive any news at all, which proved that the other party was still hiding in the Dawn organization. However, whether it was in the academy or in the organization, Eugenie Rabbit had never heard of anyone's blaze being the knight's sword in front of her. What was going on here? Eugenie Rabbit would never have thought that the intruder in front of her was the one who had defeated her, and was her student, Noah. Noah's blaze had long been recognized as a revolver. Therefore, using the knight's sword's blaze would not only not expose Noah's identity, it would also create a better concealment effect. As for the possibility of someone having two blaze, that was a thought that no one would have. Blaze was a materialized soul. And a person's soul only had one. If that was the case, how could they turn into two completely different blaze fangs? Therefore, no one would suspect Noah. This made Noah's mouth, which was only exposed outside of the hood, curl up, and he raised the knight's sword high above his head. Bang! The knight's sword that was held high above Noah's head suddenly burst into a ball of blue flame, burning fiercely. Then, Noah called out that name. He called out the name of the true power hidden in the knight's sword, blaze. Wanton plunder. Black Tea King. The blazing flames on the blade of the knight's sword suddenly stagnated. With a curl, the flames retracted into the blade of the knight's sword. Everything returned to normal. However, not only did Yu Jinli not laugh and mock her opponent like before, she became vigilant instead. The opponent had already unleashed the true power of Blaze. After unleashing the power, there were no abnormalities, so anyone would become vigilant. And the moment this vigilance appeared in Yu Jianli's heart, as if Noah didn't want Yu Jianli to react, he turned his body, turned into a shadow, and flashed towards Yu Jianli like a ghost. Almost at the same time, Yu Jianli focused and waved the snake belly sword in her hand without hesitation. It brought with it a sharp and oppressive wind as it fiercely chopped down. Ding! The snake belly sword that was as heavy as a mountain cut through the air, and the knight's sword that had strangely appeared in front of her with a ferocious force. It suddenly collided with the knight's sword that was also ruthlessly chopping down at her, causing the space to explode with a light and crisp sound. The sound was light, but the attack was the most violent kind. Around the knight's sword and the snake belly sword that had collided, ripples of energy quickly spread out, causing the atmosphere to be disturbed. Ding 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 ding. Immediately, the ripples of energy continuously reverberated, and at the center of the energy ripples, a series of crisp collision sounds rang out one after another. That was the sound of the knight's sword and the snake belly sword crazily chopping at each other. Staring at Yu Jinli Rabbit, who had an unusually heavy expression in front of him, Noah's feet stomped on the ground as if he wanted to stomp on it. Amidst the stomping sounds, he constantly closed in on Yu Jinli Rabbit. The knight's sword in his hand was like a gust of wind as it continuously chopped down. Ding 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 ding. Yu Jinli, who was still wary of Noah, had no choice but to passively block the heavy, snake belly sword. She blocked Noah's slashes one by one, causing the snake belly sword to ignite circles of sparks. Holding the knight's sword with both hands, Noah waved his hand, and the knight's sword in his hand directly cut through the air, furiously chopping down towards Yu Jinli Rabbit's head. This attack didn't have the slightest bit of fancy. It only had a surging and terrifying power. And under the pressure of this power, all the air within half a meter of the knight's sword was compressed and escaped in all directions, causing a vacuum to form when the knight's sword was swung down. TCH. Looking at the knight's sword that was rapidly enlarging in her eyes, Yu Jinli Rabbit held the snake belly sword tightly, and immediately, fiercely swung the sword at Noah across the air. Dong! With a swing of the sword, the space in front of Yu Jinli Rabbit actually shook as if it had exploded, making a muffled sound. Immediately after, this heavy blow immediately turned into an invisible impact, and with a sharp sound that resounded throughout the vast room, it violently shot out and collided with the knight's sword in Noah's hand. Bang! The knight's sword suddenly collided with the invisible impact when it was half a meter away from Yu Jinli Rabbit's head. The force transmitted from the sword shook the body of the sword, causing the knight's sword to become sluggish. However, in this situation, Noah didn't retreat, but instead advanced. His body turned into a black line, and he took advantage of the situation to enter Yu Jinli Rabbit's side, and his right hand suddenly clenched. Hoo! With an extremely strong force rapidly condensing on Noah's fist, Noah's body twisted, and his fist was like a cannonball, rubbing against the air, and in the heavy sound of the wind, it directly smashed towards Yu Jinli Rabbit's chest. Yu Jinli Rabbit was shocked. There was no way for her not to be shocked. Yu Jinli Rabbit, who had been on guard against the true power of the blaze that Noah released earlier, put all of her attention on Noah's knight's sword. How could she have thought that Noah would suddenly swing his fist at her like this? Feeling the strong wind coming from the opponent's fist, Yu Jinli Rabbit only had time to raise the snake belly sword in her hand and block in front of her body before the cannonball-like fist came crashing down. Bang! The fist that carried the terrifying force smashed onto the ferocious snake belly sword. Dong! An astonishing force turned into an impact, and like a tide, it rapidly surged out, and through the snake belly sword in Yu Jinli Rabbit's hand, it exploded like a bomb on Yu Jinli Rabbit's snake belly sword. Ha! Yu Jinli Rabbit, who had firmly endured the force from the snake belly sword with her body, let out a muffled groan. A hint of ruthlessness flashed through her eyes, and with a shout, she actually also raised a fist, and heavily smashed onto her own snake belly sword. Bang! This time, it was Eugenly Rabbit's turn to turn the force from her fist into an impact. It contracted on the snake belly sword, and immediately after, it suddenly bulged, and burst out in an earth-shattering manner. And the one who bore the brunt of it, naturally, was Noah, who was still holding his fist against the snake belly sword. Paw! Along with the explosive force from the other end of the snake belly sword, it attached itself to Noah's arm like a poisonous snake. A strange slapping sound came from Noah's arm, and he was directly shaken off by this force. After retreating a few steps, that force was finally removed. Who? Seeing Noah being shaken off, Eugenly Rabbit's gaze turned ruthless, and she raised the snake belly sword high above her head. Bite him to death. Crazy snake who? As she spoke, a scorching blue flame suddenly ignited from the snake belly sword in Eugenly Rabbit's hand. Finally, Eugenly Rabbit had also released the true power of her blaze. Seeing that Eugenly Rabbit had begun to release the true power of her blaze, Noah's eyes flashed, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.